Another lady just coming in. We're just actually saying hello.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
That's
Are you
okay.
Helen?
Yes, I am.
Hello, Helen.
Hello.
I'm Jeremy.
Oh, hello.
And we don't know who you are, I don't think, but
I'm
probably
Peter
should.
Crossley.
Peter Crossley, so that's
planning,
the planning application.
yeah.
Okay, hello Peter, welcome. Right, okay, as we start then, and we might have some more people drifting in or we might not, let's start then with apologies and reasons for absence. No, you go on, that's all right.
Lee Finlan, volunteer.
Yes,
Who's just
Leave
walking
it,
with
right, okay, thank you. Declaration by members of any interest pecuniary or other than pecuniary in accordance with Council's Code of Conduct and Guide. George.
The school
Transport. Okay, that's a pecuniary interest, I think, potentially, isn't it? So
Could be.
you can comment in the public session, but you're not to take part in the formal discussion under the Code of Conduct, which you know. To approve and reject any application put to the meeting, we don't have one because you didn't ask for dispensation, and I don't think you would in this case. Reminder to everyone that the meeting is recorded for publication on the internet. Now we can adjourn for the public session. I think that we've got two issues really. We've got the planning and we've got the school transport, and we've got anything else that people want to raise. Let's do it in two pieces, I think then. Let's start with the planning, as we usually do, and then anything else that people want to raise, and then we'll go to the school transport. I'm just saying do it that way because it may be that one or two other parents are still coming, or it may be they're not. If they're not, that's fine, but we give them a few minutes to catch up. They're not. No, they're not, okay.
Two of them could arrange it, they're at work.
Okay, that's fine, understood. So let's start then, we'll have the public session. Let's start with the planning, which is Shenley Cottage at Parish Court Road. And you're the applicant, aren't you?
That's right,
Would
yes.
you like to talk to us about it?
Well, I just came along to answer any questions, to be honest.
That's fine. Who has got questions?
No. No.
Okay, and evidently your neighbour isn't here. I didn't look it up online. Have we got any comments from the neighbour?
I haven't received
No,
any.
no, okay.
I've discussed it with all my neighbours and they all seem quite happy.
They haven't commented to you anyway. Okay. Right, thank you for that. So that's the planning. We're going on well today.
Keep going.
Excuse me, take a breathe. Now, does anyone have any things they want to raise before we go on to school transport? Mary?
Yes, the duty of regard, the O&B purposes, which will be going on sometime. Do you remember, Mr. Chairman, you said that if I could produce the written blurb about it, then that would be satisfactory. I've got it. In fact, I've got personalised copies for everyone.
Yes,
Very kind, Mary.
I said that we wouldn't discuss it again until or unless someone came up with something that
Right.
was authoritative, and if that
And I've
is,
put the bit. It's
then we can look
the
at it for next time.
it's the monitoring body. As you'll see, I've just that's my writing on the right. At the first stage, it's the O&B unit. Second stage, it's Natural England.
Okay.
At the third stage,
I
the
shall look forward.
minister.
I shall look forward to studying it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Is there anything else you wanted to raise with us?
No, that's
Thank you.
all.
Thank you,
very
Mary.
much. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Does anyone else want to raise anything at this point? No? So, Helen, I tell you what we'll do, if this suits, I mean, I drafted myself some notes because this was before, you said you were coming. Let me skim through my notes in terms of what I think has happened, and then you give us your take on exactly your appeal hasn't happened yet, has it?
No,
But
I
you know
wasn't
about the
interested.
others yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. What I have got here, just to set the scene for the councillors, we discussed it a bit last month, and this will just catch us up. Last month, the parish council agreed to send a letter to Mike Hill, copied to Damien Green and Amber Rudd MPs, and that was all done by the clerk. First three appeals were heard yesterday, but not Helen's. Mike Hill supported the parents in the appeals, and he made clear the strength of feeling in the village over the implementation at the panel. He said this is really causing trouble in the village. Two children in terms of the appeals in year 7 whose previous offer of free transport had been rescinded, their free transport had been rescinded, they lost their appeals. One of them in year 9, who also happens to be the elder sibling of one of them in year 7, who had already been attending Homewood for 2 years into the 3rd year, they won the appeal and their withdrawal of free transport was overturned. So one family has won one and lost one, and the other family lost. The sibling policy for the younger sibling didn't carry any weight. I'm not even sure if it was mentioned, but of course there is a sibling policy which says they should go to the same school. Whereas Kent is in effect saying they should go to different schools, one to Rye and one to Homewood. I spoke to Mike Hill in person last week because I bumped into him in the village and I told him what I thought about it there, and that was a follow-up to when I spoke to him in September. I then called him again on the phone this afternoon as soon as I saw the outcome, and we had another quarter of an hour. And I pressed the case further. Mike has stressed that he remains sympathetic to the parents, but he said it's a matter of the policy being followed, and he said difficult cases always emerge. I said, well, that's what the appeals are for, and obviously the appeals aren't working. Mike has told me, and I didn't realise this for councillors, we discussed this last month, that KCC, he says, would still pay the transport cost even if they went to Rye, because they live in Kent. So they're not saving anything either way. If they went to Rye, the only thing is they would claim, and I don't agree with them, that they would be paying the shorter distance. But if they go to Tenterden, they don't get it at all because they're not going to the nearest school. It's the Humphrey, really. So I said it would cost them more to send them to Rye on a second bus. He felt the principle is the principle, and that's what they're stuck with. I think, I didn't say this to him, that's probably why they're hard up. He felt there's no likelihood in practice of the children switching to Rye, and so the parents would be left to meet the charges, or whatever they do instead. I think that approach breaches normal requirements of public administration, I've told him. I said I want to know how the distances were calculated and by what route. It cannot be a black box. There's new software that they say has worked it all out. He said he'd try and find out more on this. I mentioned freedom of information and he said, oh, it shouldn't be necessary. I've emailed him now with the distances that I got off of Google Maps. Today I did it all again. I'm not saying that Google Maps is any better than their software. I'm saying the distances are distances and there are disputes. It may be their software is better, but they've got to disclose. In terms of what I found, and I was doing it from the shop because Kylie lives behind the shop. Distances from the shop to Homewood 5.7 miles, to Rye College only 5.5, providing you go via Deadman's Lane. But that is a 6'6" width limit and it's one way. It's 6.7 miles if you go there on the proper road and 6.2 coming back because of the one-way system. So Homewood is closer than Rye College if you go around the proper roads by quite a bit, and it's slightly closer even if it was a small minibus that could go down Deadman's Lane one way. There are more appeals to be heard, including Helen's, in another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Still thereabouts. We'll await responses now from the parents on the next steps, and obviously this is what Helen's going to talk to us about in a moment. There are also apparently knock-on effects on our village primary school because that has out-of-area children and they're being attacked as well on losing free transport. So if I can now suggest, unless people want to comment on that first, Helen now tells us where she's coming from and what she wants to do next. Paul?
Can I just ask a very quick question? I didn't really understand if they were suggesting children go to Rye. What transport are they suggesting is being provided for that journey?
I think they're hoping they don't have to.
So how would the children get to Rye if there isn't any transport?
They'd have to put it on.
They'd have to put transport on, so
and
the
therefore,
bus to Homewood would go half empty,
right.
and they'd have to put another bus on to go to Rye.
And the bus would have to be of a size that legally could travel down Deadman's Lane.
Or go the long way round.
Or go the long way around.
Yeah,
and therefore, if sufficient children, there's only so many children you can get on a minibus, all right? So it might end up being 2 or 3 or 4 minibuses.
All true.
Right. And the other thing was, have we had any response to those letters that you copied to the two
Yes.
MPs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we have.
Sort of
Oh,
courteous.
okay. Okay. And any commentary from the East Sussex Education Authority? They're quite happy
I
with
sent
children.
it was to MPs.
Yeah, I
was
know.
it
I just
not?
didn't
So
know
I
whether
haven't
in
heard
all of this,
nothing-
in all this
nothing from East
discussion,
Sussex.
has any opinion been put forward by East Sussex?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Not that I've
Thank you.
asked for it.
I
That's
should have
fine.
just added one other thing that I did before Helen. I called Rye College this afternoon and I explained exactly who I was and asked them if they had any vacancies for Year 7 children. The lady concerned wasn't authoritative. She said the person who would be certain was in a meeting, but she felt that there were one or two or a few. I mean, it depends who, you know, I mean, I don't think children are going to go there, but they may do. It may be exactly what Helen's going to do. That Kent is encouraging the children to be pulled out of Homewood after a month and sent to Rye, or at Christmas, because they're paying for the transport until Christmas. And to be honest, they can't object if that was the outcome. It's not very good for the children, but they can't object. Anyway, Helen, off you go. I've given you the background.
Yeah, well, pretty much, you know, everything that you've just covered. What annoys me is that there's no free transport to Rye College either, and there's going to be no free transport to Homewood either, regardless of the outcome. So
When you said there isn't any, my understanding is if you went to Rye, your
Yeah.
child, which is the closest, they have no choice. It's government policy. They have to do it.
Well, apparently,
Have they
because
said
it's
that they won't?
Because it's East Sussex comes under a different council policy.
That, you see, last month, Helen, we figured that they were trying to dump it onto East Sussex to
Yeah.
pay.
Yeah,
Mike Hill today said, no, if you live in Kent, Kent has to pay,
right.
which was a surprise to me, but that's what he said.
Well,
There seems maybe a bit of confusion.
they're saying there's a lot of confusion with KCC. They contradict themselves constantly for all the parents. So they actually issued my daughter with a free bus pass and then they're withdrawing it
Yeah.
after she'd started. So I'm sort of in a situation, I'm not going to be pulling her out of Homewood at all because one, Rye College is in Ofsted report is inadequate. They're in
Is it that
special
bad?
measure- Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in special measures. You know, and at the moment, Homewood offer more on the curriculum than what Rye College would, and she's already settled in that. So for me, because of their policy that they've got in place now, because of the distance, regardless of their policy, we're not deemed close enough to Homewood. Rye College is it. So the next step would be to have the policy overturned.
Yeah.
And that's where, obviously, I've come to you,
Yeah.
because I can't do it by myself.
Can I just add one thing as well, that you can pay for transport, which is £400, £200 for 3 terms and then another £200.
Yeah.
But you can only apply for the transport after the start of the term, when they know the spaces,
Yeah,
and it takes at least a month to go through.
yeah,
So you still will have to find some means of getting your child to school
yeah,
from at least a month before you even know if you've got a place on the bus or not.
exactly.
So they're more or less pushing things in the direction of non-attendance.
It seems that way.
And when you said £400, tell me again how that worked, because I'd heard
£200 for
280.
terms
Term.
1, 2 and 3 and
Yeah.
£200 for terms 3, 4 and 5.
But-
Oh, sorry, 5, 4,
Five,
5,
four,
6.
five,
Oh,
six.
sorry,
Six-
Homewood
six
has
terms.
multiple terms.
They all do.
200
6 terms
pounds for terms
One,
1,
2
2
and
and 3, and another.
for 4, 5 and 6
And that's
It
only
works out.
if there's spaces
on the
on.
bus.
It's
Scotland
like
debates coach.
£640, 20p for the year if they was to travel by public bus. And if they was to do that, they'd have to get the early bus, which would be at 7:11, and arrive at the Vine at 7:21, and be a whole hour and a half before school, or they catch the public bus after 9, which means they're late for school.
So, yeah,
Just
we've
a
been
couple
there
more.
before. So how much did you see on the public bus?
It works out £640, 20p to the day today. The current price.
£640, 20p for the number of days they do it.
Mhm.
And there's no season tickets, I take it. That's just...
Well, apparently there's a freedom pass of £290, but then I think that then comes into additional fees on that as well.
And on the Homewood bus, they have to apply once the thing is started.
If you want to buy a place on the
Yeah.
provided bus, yeah.
And
you
wait
can
for
only-
how long?
It said it would take. I was looking online, and it said going back to September that they would only allow you to apply once they know how many places are available, and you would only hear. The process takes at least a month before you hear if you've got a place.
And you have to do it every year.
And you have to do it every year. Yeah, it doesn't just because you got it this year doesn't mean you get it. So
So,
it's just a.
so I realise that there's no joined up thinking, but the government is spending 200 billion on benefits, including universal credit, to get people to work, but they want them not to work so they can take the children to school for the first month of every year or term.
In one of the meetings yesterday, it was actually pointed out that because the mum at the moment is to and froing, dropping her son off to school, it was pointed out that the money that she called spending in fuel over the year is cheaper for her to buy a bus ticket. And actually pointed that out to her in the meeting. And like she said, you can't, you know, at the moment she's juggling around work,
Yeah, of course.
but when her hours change, she can't commit to that either. So she's stuck. But they, you know, they're pointing it out on what she's spending on fuel. She should pay for a bus ticket, basically. Which is, again, another inappropriate question.
Okay, so
There's no logic behind it. So they're not saying it's going to cost them more money. It's going to split siblings. It's going to interrupt people's education.
Yeah.
okay, so the
Good
big
for the
thing
green
that's
footprint either, is it?
No.
Split
No.
the village.
the big thing that's come out of what Helen has said there, if I read it right, apart from the interesting things about the bus and the timing, I'd seen that, but I think that's going to have confirmed. The interesting thing is that you've been told, which is different to what I had believed, but I didn't have any reason to believe it maybe, that if you were sending the child to Rye, then they'd have to provide the transport, and they've told you they wouldn't. But
Well,
my
yeah.
understanding is government policy
I
says
was
more
led
than
to-
3 miles you get free transport to the nearest school.
I was led to believe East Sussex will only pay for free transport if you live in East Sussex, and Kent County Council wouldn't because it's outside of Kent.
Ah, yeah, but the thing about the going outside of Kent, that's the change of Kent's policy to say that now they look for the nearest school wherever it is, and not only in Kent.
Right.
And I don't think that, I mean, maybe they're trying to have their cake and eat it, as someone said recently, but I don't think that would be that bad. I mean, if it was, that would be really, you know, riding for a fall.
But then they also said that they don't take away a bus pass midway through a child's education, and yet
Yeah.
they did that.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting as well is that I assumed anyway, I won't tar everyone with the same brush, that because this had changed this term, that this was a new policy that came in, but evidently it came in 2011.
Well,
So what they've been
12, yeah.
doing
exactly.
for all those years,
Can I
you
just
know,
get onto that in a moment?
Yeah.
If I just write this down, I want to inquire about that. So they only pay for children who live in East Sussex, and Kent, query, say they don't pay for children who go out the border. They don't pay for children who go outside. Now, this policy thing, Helen, you just touched on, which is important. When you first sent the documents around by email about a month ago, or 6 weeks ago, before our last council meeting,
Yeah.
I caught an email, I think, coming from Sue, who knows about this stuff. It attached a policy that had come off Kent's website.
Yeah.
When I went looking on Kent at that time,
Yeah.
I came up with a different policy. And it struck me just as an assumption or a speculation that you had got one, I don't think you'd had it in your drawer for 6 years, that you had actually picked one up off the website, which may have been out of date, but it's their responsibility to take it away if it's out of date.
Yeah.
So it may be that they had changed the policy. Not only had they not told you they'd changed the policy, they left the old policy there for you to think that was still it.
Yeah.
Now they're claiming they've got a new policy, but they're also claiming it's been since 2012.
Yeah.
And of course that could be, being, you know, helpful to them for a minute, they could have changed this bit of the policy, but what's happened to us now is changing this bit of the policy, and it's the way in which they bounce off each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask, presumably this applies to the whole of Kent, this policy?
Yeah.
Right?
But
So
we're just unlucky.
Yeah,
by
no,
being
but it'd be
people.
very interesting to know what other schools on the borders
On the borders.
Yeah.
are suffering potentially in the same way. That's the first thing. The second thing is I think we should formally ask East Sussex County Council for their views on this, because it's all very well Kent County Council deciding on that. Does East Sussex have a similar thing where they might have children in East Sussex who live near a Kent school or a Surrey school or what have you? Because, as you quite rightly said earlier on, it's this complete lack of joined up.
Well, that's where I'm not
thinking
sure
here.
if I said it, but when I spoke to Rye today,
That's the
the
numbers.
woman said, I suppose perhaps our children who come from Northiam ought to go to Templeton.
Well, yeah, but that needs to be resolved. The other thing is, it's all. I mean, I feel deeply sorry for the 2 or 3 people that have been mentioned here, but actually, there's surely a duty of care along here that we ought to start projecting how many people in this village over the next 5 years, for example, are going to be in the same boat.
Oh, it's worse.
Because this is not a one-off.
It's worse
and-
because next year
yeah.
they won't be able to claim that they were told different.
Yes, but we need to get corroboration
No, right.
that Sussex is aware of this and planning accordingly. And the other thing is, I find it completely unbelievable that KCC is saying you must go to a school in special measures. I mean, that to me is...
I think, Mr. Chairman, the course of action which should be taken is that
Can,
the people who
can
are-
I say that we'll have our discussion afterwards, of course?
well, this I think is
It's-
relevant
it's
to
connected.
what you're saying at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that my understanding the referral should be made to the Children's Ombudsman
Yes.
direct.
Okay, good thought. Right. So we may want to come back to you on that bit of policy that you found,
Yeah.
especially if you know where you got it from. But
Off
the
the
website,
website, I
yeah.
think
But
it's
the
in
trouble is the
the
website is
attachment.
vast, and if you ever search for something, you get 2 different things on 2 different days.
Yeah.
But yes, okay. Roger wants to come in a moment. Maybe now or maybe after Roger, we'd like to know what you think you would like to be doing next and what sort of things you think we can do. Because we'd obviously, if we decide we want to go into bat on this, and that's for the councillors when we have our meeting, our own meeting here, then it will be useful to know where you and you think the other mothers and fathers are looking. I mean, you want it solved, I suppose.
Exactly. I'm
You
not
said
going to
alternate
stop
policy.
being my bonnet. I'm not going to stop. So, and it's the principle, and I worry more for the other people that can't afford it, and the single mothers that can't afford it, and the ones that don't drive can't afford it, living in such a rural area.
Yeah.
It's going to have a massive knock-on effect for them, and I think we need to get the whole policy overturned, and I think that would be the only
Oh, I
solution.
can see that. Is it, I'm just making an assumption here, so in a sense, and I don't mean to put you in a difficult spot,
Mhm.
you quite rightly think that it's iniquitous, and I understand the point you're making.
Yeah.
You are not the person to make the case that for you it's unaffordable,
Mhm.
from what you just said.
Yeah.
Do you know others who are getting caught this year who have a better case for saying they can't, they are single, they're on benefits or whatever?
Not at the moment, because I don't know quite who it's reached yet. It's only started coming out with the woodwork sort of thing. But I mean, there's other children, you know, that my daughter went to school with that are going on that bus, and I'm still yet waiting to find out if they're going to be affected. You know, so until that is the case, then I can't really comment on that. But you know, like one month, she's just come back from Australia. They haven't got the funds.
That's
She- you know,
Kylie.
Yeah, Keely.
Keely,
Yeah,
sorry.
she can't afford it. She can't afford to pay £400 outright on a bus
No, I
seat.
understand.
You know, they're trying to get back on their feet after
Sure.
a tough few months.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfair that KCC can just expect parents to do that at the drop of the hat, especially when they haven't even pre-warned you when you're going in to book your
Sure.
child's transport. There's nothing there to state that at all.
No.
I think it goes,
Well,
goes
they
back
did-
further than that.
Yeah.
You didn't know when you were choosing
No,
your school for your
exactly.
child. That's the
And
issue.
for generations and
Yes.
years upon years, children have gone to Homewood.
Yeah.
And Wittersham's been a feeder school for Homewood.
Exactly.
It's part of the Rural Alliance. Never even occurred to me that we would even have this problem.
No, sure. No one realised.
No.
No,
No.
exactly.
And I don't think, to be honest, I don't think KCC realised. I think that it suddenly came
Yeah.
up as a, ooh, we
And-
could.
And I genuinely thought that they'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
And then I put the appeal forward, as did all the other parents,
Mm.
and they refused it. And it
I
was
was
a complete
surprised.
blanket response
Yeah.
to the appeal as well.
Sure.
And yet we've still had to take it further, and yet I'm still likely going to have to take it further
Sure.
and carry on.
Okay. Roger.
It was just as an ordinary member of the public in Wittersham, absolutely appalled by what I'm hearing. Absolutely appalled. They're playing with children's lives here. And these days when we talk about mental health and everything else, I can think of nothing worse than for a child to have started school and then be told it's about to move and to have failed in school as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that what I'm really saying is, please, O Council, when you come to your discussion, really get some concerted effort going, get the village together behind you, those who are involved, let's find out who they are, all the way around, and really go for it. Because otherwise this is just going to drag on, as we know these things do.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite dreadful
Sure.
the way this has been done.
Sure.
End of message.
Indeed.
Can I just
At
say,
every level.
as well, with like to that, one of the parents who'd actually, their daughter had been refused, she's pulled her out of Homewood now because she couldn't deal with the change. All her friends went on the bus and she had to be dropped in and she couldn't deal with that. It really unsettled
I
her.
thought you were being given till Christmas.
We have, but she got refused from the start.
Oh.
And it really had a knock-on effect with her settling in at Homewood. She's had to withdraw her and send her to private school because it's too much. From all of her friends going to school on the bus, the whole settling in, she just couldn't settle. So she's actually pulled her out of Homewood and gone to another school because of it's just it played a massive impact on their family.
All right. Okay. Can I ask you, if you don't mind, can you give me your phone number? I've got your email address, obviously.
Yeah, it's 07
Mm-hmm.
84
Yeah.
38
No landline.
yeah
Oh,
63.
anyway,
You might be
okay.
better on
Anyway,
my mobile.
0784 38
63
63
773
773. Yeah.
and then it's 270
Yeah.
727.
Yeah. 2770 2727. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Jeremy, can
Yes,
I
go
make
on,
a
Sue.
comment? I know we're obviously going to look at the policy thing, but here in Helen's case, if she's the only one who's already been granted the pass to Homewood, her appeal may well be to go for the fact that it was already
Are
granted.
you the only one who got the
No,
bus
No.
the
ticket?
second one.
Ah,
It's happened to someone
Because
else who just has
it's
a-
the fact
a
it's already been
Right.
granted.
No.
Yeah.
That
So-
would be a
so
way
yours-
to push on the appeal.
So yours may be a more administratively stupid situation that they've given it in writing and taken it away again. In fact, you actually got the bus ticket, excuse me. One other at least got the bus ticket, other people got refused from the start.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the child of Helena, one's got it because they already go for the third year, and it's been upheld.
Yeah.
The other one is new. Did they get a bus ticket or not?
No.
No, they got turned down to start
Yeah,
with.
from the
Okay.
start. But someone else in the village had got granted and has just recently, last week, had a letter stating that it's going to be withdrawn.
Right.
And that's why I'm waiting to see who else is affected. I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be something that we'll hear throughout the year.
I did suggest to Sean and Helena that might be a good first step, was we to get all the names together of everyone who's affected.
Yeah.
Try to
Well,
get people, do it on
What?
on Facebook or
Yeah,
Nextdoor
that's
or
what
something
I'm
like that.
doing.
Get people just to register them.
Is it
I think
obvious
that's
where the
right.
cut-off point is?
No, it's
No.
scattered. So you have somebody at the shop, which is really annoying because Keely's at the shop. The boy that lives at the shop had his granted and he's year 7. Her son, 2 doors away, refused.
The
So
son should be
I'm-
year 8, I was told.
No,
Doesn't matter.
But he
Doesn't make
went
any
at
difference,
Christmas. He went at Christmas, didn't he?
no, I don't know. Not that I'm
No.
aware of. I only know
Still
from
the
what
same
she's
bridge.
told me.
And
Yeah.
Lloyd's Green,
Um,
and nobody refused that.
No, so then you've got opposite the playing field down there. I'm not sure what that's called. Opposite the playing field.
Forge Meads.
Forge Meads, yeah. So you have one there affected, and then obviously me at number 1.
You're at number 1 what?
Addison
Next
Cottages
door.
next door.
Oh, number 1 Addison Cottages.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously there's children next door which are midway through their education anyway. But there's also a child at number 4 who's year 7. She's just started. She's granted. Not been affected. Then further down there's Katie East, who's Peace Cottage, further down. So those refused.
Forge
And
Meads
then
would
Helen
certainly.
next to the school.
I mean, Forge Meads seems to be an odd decision because that's
Yeah, just
quite a
around
lot
the
closer.
Yeah,
And yeah, my daughter who lives on the other side of
Yeah.
the road to you has got it. So.
exactly. And considering it had been in place since
Yeah.
2011.
Can I ask Helen that, if I could ask this, can you put all this down in writing, all your intelligence of who lives where?
Yeah.
You know, it's one
Yeah.
child in year 7. I don't think you probably give us the names,
No,
but tell us the addresses and the
Yeah.
who it is and whether they got it or they didn't, or they got it and it's withdrawn, or they never got it. You know, and that will give us some helpful intelligence on our side.
Yeah.
And you
Thing
can
is with
gather,
Wittersham,
you can
it's
gather
such a
that
small
better than we
class.
can.
Yeah, it's such a small class, so it is
Yeah.
only going to be a handful of children anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
But
If you
yeah.
could do that, that would be helpful. Okay, Phil, you are trying to get in earlier.
I feel passionately as Roger does about this, and I think it was Paul who used the phrase duty of care. The local authorities have a duty of care to their communities. That surely is even deeper if there's risk of disruption or even trauma to a child. It's very deep.
Right.
And
You're right. I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees with any of this. Okay. Does anyone else? And I should have come to you earlier, Kate, for your report. Does anyone else want to say anything on this or anything else before I go to Kate, and then I'll close the public session, and then we'll have and yours. I'm sorry, 2 reports. I always forget that. Roger usually tells me off. And then we'll have the discussion ourselves. Immediately afterwards, we can do the minutes, I guess, and then it comes after. The minutes don't take long, and then we'll come to that. So, if you don't want to stay too long, at least you can hear that.
Chairman, 2 points, if I may.
Of course.
Firstly, I obviously support anything that the parish council managed to do. I've commented to the county council
Very good, thank you.
and trying to make necessary people at the borough council aware, which they're not all that aware, you see, because
No.
the situation, they're not near a border.
No.
But I do know of an instance, at least 1, if not 2 or 3, of primary school children in Appledore being told they've got to go to Ham Street instead of Wittersham.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, maybe you know about this. But whether it comes under the same policy that the KCC.
Seemingly.
Oh, I'll see you later. Yeah.
That one, according to Sue, is even better because seemingly, since the child in Appledore should go to Woodchurch, but Woodchurch doesn't have space, they want the child then to go to Ham Street, which of course may be further than here.
No, it's
And
near.
because there isn't the bus, they're talking of putting the child in
In
a
a
taxi.
taxi.
Yeah, no,
Pound for
I just thought I'd mention it.
No, thank you. That's quite right.
Good point.
Mr. Chairman, could we have an address to who we could write at Kent County Council or Ashford or wherever, so we can put in our own personal...
Yes, I mean, we've got to think, well, you'll be here still, we've got to think of who we will get onto and how.
Right.
I mean, we did the right thing in a way, writing to Mike Hill to make our points, and copied to Amber Rudd, which was the East Sussex County Council. We didn't have much excuse to write to East Sussex.
Not county council.
No, we didn't have
She's
much.
MP,
I know.
yes.
We didn't have much excuse to write to the county council, but we had an excuse to write to Amber Rudd because we were writing to Damien Green. So that's where she came in, and obviously we hoped that she might have, or her secretary might have had the savvy to give a shake to the education people, but as far as we know, didn't.
Tasty Susan.
No, I'm thinking of East Sussex now.
Oh, East Sussex.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. People that don't know me, my name's Kate, and I'm your local PCSO. There are 2 of us now. There's Luke as well. For anyone that doesn't know, we don't just cover one parish. We cover quite a number of parishes. So I do apologise if I'm not always to the parish council meeting, but obviously it does on commitments and other parishes as well, so I do apologise. Looking at reports that have been reported, I can report that actually your parish is crime rate is very low, or that is what is being reported to us. In the village, you might know of other things that are going on that aren't being reported. I do emphasise to people to report things because we don't know they're going on unless it gets reported. You can do it via 101, the telephone line, or online now, which is an easier way of doing it. If you go onto Kent Police website, reporting a crime, you just click on the bit that says report crime and you can put it all in and it comes directly to us. If residents want to know what the crime rate is in the area, you can go onto police.uk and you get an up-to-date figure of what is being reported on there. What I would say is it's normally a couple of months behind, so on there at the moment is August. So August crime rates for the area, which isn't just Wittersham, it's surrounding, is 10 crimes. But antisocial behaviour and things like that are very, very minimal.
Right.
Obviously, I know in past months you've had reports of those little silver canisters. We are talking to the schools, especially Homewood and the bigger schools in Ashford. Unfortunately, these little capsules, they're not illegal. They're easily and readily available. You can pick them up in things like the squirty icing canisters. They give the kids a high. They are dangerous. So we are going around and talking to the schools about the pros and cons of them. But there's, apart from educating the kids of the dangers of them, at the moment there's nothing we can do, unfortunately. But they don't tend to put them in the bins, they just leave them in piles on the green. So
there was one in the road up here yesterday morning.
Yeah. So all I would say is we are monitoring it and we are speaking to the schools. I hold a police clinic at Homewood every 6-7 weeks. So if there's troublesome kids that are coming through that are either causing issues in the area or at school, or bits and pieces at the school that wants us to, we go in, we tackle it. So we have a good rapport with the school.
Right.
Obviously Halloween is coming up. Not everyone likes Halloween. So I will leave some of these, that if there are any residents that don't want people calling on the door, they can put one in their windows. So I'll leave those behind for you. Speeding, we did a couple of months ago. We had a traffic officer out with us. What I would say maybe for the council, can you just pop round and check where your signs are and stuff, because some of the foliage is covering some of them, and people could object that if they got a ticket or something, or we never saw it because the sign was in the hedge.
Yeah, we try to be good at that, but that's not to say we don't miss one sometimes.
No, and I know certain seasons you can't go and cut the hedges, so I do appreciate that.
You count for safety.
Absolutely. If anyone in the village would like to set up Speed Watch, please let us know, because obviously we can't be out all the time.
We've got the speed indicators
Excellent.
organised, and we got a grant from Mike Hill in KCC and a grant from Mick here at Ashford. It's been going for a while to get it all in place. Unfortunately, KCC have just told the clerk in the last few weeks that because they've had trouble in other villages, they want to start again from scratch, re-survey everywhere, and we've got to consult the public.
Right.
So it's holding it up.
Okay. But I can see that you guys are on
We're
board
trying.
on that. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
not strictly speed watch, it's one of the ones that says 27 or 42.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least it's something.
Because Tenterson have just got theirs.
Same thing.
It was on the Small Hive Road.
Yeah, same thing.
Which moves around every couple of months.
We will also move, except in one of our sites they've said they won't allow anymore. They did.
Yeah.
That's Swan Street. They've said we can't have in Swan Street. We don't agree with that, but that's what they said.
Yeah, it has to be done safety and bits and pieces like that. Are there any worries that residents or you guys have that you feel I need to know this evening?
It's the one thing I'd like to bring up.
Yes.
I have a constant concern about the junction of Acton Lane onto Stocks Road, which is the one just outside the village going towards Rye,
Okay.
just beyond the speed limit. And it's there's a slight bend in the road, so as you're coming up out of that junction, you can't be seen by the traffic coming up from Wittersham, and there are accidents there. Not long ago, we actually had to deal with someone being knocked off a motorbike.
Okay.
And then on Sunday, I think it was, Sunday morning, someone had organised a bike rally, a motorbike rally.
Right.
And I can't believe that they were allowed to have part of the route coming up Acton Lane to turn right down towards Wittersham. I live in the house on the corner, which is why I know a lot about it. And there were 4 or 5 bikes coming up the lane, racing with each other and competing to get out onto the main road. If it was just waiting for an accident to happen, and I just wonder whether these sort of events have to be passed by anyone as to the route they take.
Some do, like I
don't know what it
I
was.
get some notifications if there's cycle races in the area, just to be made aware of, but nothing has come to me about a motorbike rally or anything like that. With the junction and stuff like that, it's worth asking Highways and KCC to have a look at that.
On that.
You're saying it's out of the speed?
Just
outside.
There used to be a mirror which helped.
And that was vandalised.
Sorry?
That was vandalised.
Yes, I know, but that would say,
I can't believe it was.
That's been not there for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
So
it was very helpful before.
Yeah.
So the mirror would come through the KCC, would it, or the
I believe-
Highways?
It might have been the farmer.
He comes out with his tractors and trailers.
That's right.
Right.
Into a blind
But
bend.
there were quite a few of these mirrors put up at that point, so I don't think it was the fault.
If someone smacks into one of those tractors, they'll feel it, because they're pretty big.
Yeah, but you know, it wouldn't have been the. It would have been the person who actually was involved in the accident, not the biker.
No.
Who had to have dealt with the trauma of that. I just think I just couldn't believe that it was happening on that.
So who can we approach for a replacement mirror? What's the
I wonder
format?
whether Highways would. I'll have a look into it and
Really? That'd be
ask
great.
on who is the appropriate department.
Yeah, some guidance would be good.
Yeah.
I have a question. The rural task force has been beefed up quite significantly recently. Who's now the commander? Who's in charge? Just for the record.
He came along to our meeting with your chief inspector, but I'm not sure if I caught his name at the time.
Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you.
I'm trying-
But
no,
if you
I'm
can't
trying-
remember it,
There's so
if you
many
can let us
different-
know.
Is it Smith?
Smith.
No. Percentage-wise.
What?
Dave Smith.
Dave Smith.
I was going to say Lloyd Smith, but
No.
I think I got
No,
confused.
that's a normal name, Smith. But
Dave Smith.
Dave Smith.
Okay.
He came along and he was very good.
What is he? Is he an inspector?
Could have been Brown.
He is an inspector.
Okay, and he's a task force. That's great.
He was very good.
Yes, he's the rural inspector.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we move on and let Kate go back to her duties? And you're very welcome to stay, but I assume you
No,
wish to get on the
that's
road.
very kind. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you very much. Good night. Now, Joe, your report.
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Good job.
Okay, so apologies that I wasn't here last week. I was on annual leave, so I guess I can give you a brief update on what I've been doing for the last 2 months. I've done some work with some residents who have had some issues with theft, and it's been quite time consuming, and really I don't want to say too much because of confidentiality, but I've had quite lengthy conversations supporting and giving advice on how to deal with this particular situation, which was quite tricky. So that took up quite a bit of my time over a number of weeks actually. I've also had dealings with some fly tipping issues, and help resolve some instances. This was probably 2 months ago rather than this past month. I've been working closely with Lee, volunteer support warden, and in fact I met up with her earlier to go through some things with various emails and what have you. I obviously found out some information relating to the canisters that Kate already referred to. Again, I'm trying to work closely with Homewood particularly, and I have just this afternoon actually sent them some information relating to something that Kent Police are putting on, which is like a workshop for years 7 through to 9, and hoping that they'll get space on that, because these workshops I think are running throughout November, I believe. So that's all to do with various internet safety aspects and things like that as well. I'm doing a talk on drugs and alcohol with the Scouts at Tenterden tomorrow. So hopefully that could be something that I can maybe deliver to youngsters of the same sort of age in the village as well at some point. And other than that, generally being around as and when I can be, particularly at the market, because lots of people are around, and picking up information and being able to signpost and offer advice at that stage as well.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Joe? No? Okay, well thank you very much, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Now can I close the public session at this point then? But you are entitled to stay, and especially yourself to know about your planning application. But anyone's entitled to stay. It's just that you can't speak during the proper council meeting. Okay, so on we go. To confirm the minutes of the last meeting, everybody's had them.
Yes.
Does anyone have any queries or corrections that we didn't spot?
Could I just... Where is it? I made a comment at the last meeting against this, and I had the previous 2 meetings, which is the request for broadband in the village hall. So under the item for information, or whatever it was, sorry, 3852, please can I have it noted that I raised the point yet again requesting that we had broadband in the village hall. 3852.
Right.
I know that they're looking into it, but we seem to go on from month to month, and perhaps we could have something for Christmas.
I think the last conversation we had was that you were going. I said Steve Schurenegger was looking into it, and you said you were going to speak to him.
Yeah, I did do. But all I can do is that. But I just think it should be as a matter of record.
outcome to that conversation?
You're discussing it.
Yes.
I just wanted it noticed.
That's like the old joke, a hole has appeared in the high street and police are looking into it.
Dear.
Yes.
You know, dad jokes are coming back. He's obviously seen that.
Near Christmas.
It's a cracker.
Councillor Welling asked for action to be taken with regard to Wi-Fi in the village hall.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Can I now sign the minutes then?
Yep.
Thank you. So we go back to the beginning, wherever that was. Right, okay. This is the longest list of correspondence that I've ever seen. It was nice pen today.
Don't wear it out, it's got to last you.
Indeed, yes. Dark's expensive. Right, okay, so that's the minutes. So now we go on to matters arising, and the first is the ABC policy on parish council objections to planning applications, to which we haven't had a reply.
No, we responded.
Yeah.
The last one, and no, she was on annual leave, and
There's a lot of that. Right, okay. So now we come on to the change of KCC policy on free school transport. The issue of the moment. Who would like to? Well, Colin has already made a useful suggestion from his knowledge of the education bureaucracy, if I put it that way, which is children's ombudsman.
I can say on a personal level that in a similar situation that this young lady and other members of the village are suffering from, I took the matter when the appeal had been refused from one of my grandchildren to the Ombudsman that went to the High Court. The outcome being that KCC were forced to withdraw and provide the services that were requested in the first place. It's amazing when you go to the Ombudsman, who asks for a report from all sides, then makes a judgment as to what action should be taken. And in that particular action, he referred it to the High Court.
But then if it's been to the High Court, shouldn't there be a precedent which we could then...
Well, it wasn't the same situation, quite the same situation as this. It was a different matter within KCC.
So it's similar but not the same.
Yeah. No, similar but not the same.
Okay.
But the outcome was the success for the actual individual.
It's two things, Colin, in a way, if I put it this way. One is that you got the Children's Ombudsman on your side, which is very helpful for stage 2, which is it's the Children's Ombudsman that went to court, not you. And they paid.
The Children's Ombudsman didn't. He referred it to the High Court. There was no cost to the parent.
The Ombudsman had to go to court.
No, the Ombudsman didn't go to court. He referred the matter to both parties to provide the evidence to the High Court. At which time the High Court ruled that within a short period of time, Kent County Council had to officially respond.
Yeah. Well, someone raised the case. I mean, it doesn't just sort of...
No, it was raised between the Ombudsman and myself.
Yeah.
But then who took the costs in the end?
There was no cost to me.
No, I know.
The costs were made against Kent County Council.
But the Ombudsman decided it was worth a
Yes.
And they took that on.
Yes.
And that was two good things for you. One was they did it without you having to.
That's right.
The other one was you had them on your side. So
That's right.
carried more weight with the judge.
Yeah.
Good.
And, I think parents don't make that appeal because of the process. The process is quite straightforward. The information that you were seeking from this young lady tonight will be evidence to say what is going on.
Yeah.
And they would take a view on the seriousness of the situation. And in view of this going to repeat itself with other children in the village, I think there is a case for the collective group within the village to make an application.
I understand. I think the other thing that's quite interesting is that KCC, in their judgment from the appeal panel, which has failed yesterday, said, oh, well, you can go to the local government ombudsman, but of course they'll only look at the process, they won't judge the facts. This isn't, that's the local government ombudsman. You're talking about a children's ombudsman who has a policy interest, not a process interest.
Precisely.
And they're interested, of course, in upholding the rights of children.
That's right.
So I think it's a very good idea, and that's one for us to have in our mix. Who else would like to?
Well, only that listening to what people have been saying on the floor tonight, it would seem that there's outrage not only by the people concerned, but I would think there would be, if people knew about it, throughout the village, or from a lot of people in the village. Therefore, I think we must consider ways to put it into the public domain, so that people are aware in the village of what's happening, and to maybe formulate some sort of village protest and even publicity. I mean, it seems to me to be the sort of thing that South East Today might pick up if it was properly
Kentish Express.
Express.
Well, I did warn Mike when I first spoke to him before I went on holiday that it was, if the appeals, he said, well, we've got to go to appeal, and I obviously thought the appeals would be successful, but you never knew. I said, it's not hidden, it's KCC, but KCC are running the risk here of a lot of bad publicity.
Because it's all so ridiculous.
Egg on face.
It's just so
if it does get overturned, which is what we would like to see and what Helen would like to see and the other parents, then they just add egg on face to the rest of it.
But it's not a consistent policy.
It's not a what?
It's not a consistent policy.
It's neither consistent nor sensible.
I mean, this may sound a little bit like paranoia, but are we perhaps in Wittersham a bit of an easy target on the edge of the...
Well, that's why we've fallen into this. Although arguably, I mean, let's be fair, if you weren't on the edge, I mean, it's more complicated because we're going into East Sussex, but if you lived in some place between Tunbridge Wells and Crowborough, no, that's into East Sussex again. Let's have Tunbridge Wells and
Goldhurst.
yeah, well, I'm thinking of a bigger place with a secondary school. You could have some people who are kind of somewhere in between there, and it's always been traditional, like the feeder school that you were talking about, that they always normally went to Tunbridge Wells, but all of a sudden someone says, oh, why, you should be going to whichever other one. So it could happen within the body of Kent as well. Our case seems to be partly because, this is what Mike told me when I first spoke to him, he said that it always used to be within Kent that the policy applied, the nearest school in Kent, and that's clearly Homewood. But now they've said, but it can be across the border. That then means it throws open the possibility of refusing a previously established situation. If you were in Kent, obviously that part wouldn't apply. You know, it would always have been whatever it was.
So is
A
that
couple of
bit
points here.
that's changed? The
It
fact
may
that
be. I
it's
think that's what it is.
cross-county?
And that's why I think they may be saying they've got a policy of 2012, but I think maybe another policy has come in and has, because what they used to have, I think, well, I don't know if it was the one you sent us, but there was one that said you have to go to one of the 3 nearest schools. Now it's the nearest, but then the next thing is, well, is it just the nearest in Kent, or is it the nearest anywhere? And obviously all these things, these sort of cut this, they can have an impact on the ground, and especially because we're in the middle of the two, and then we're on the border. Paul?
A couple of points here. First of all, has the head of the school of Wittersham been contacted about this, and does she have a view? Because I would have thought that, you know, coming under the duty of care, part of the responsibilities of the school now, dare I say, is that if you're starting to prepare children for the next stage in their education, you've got to break the news to them psychologically that they're going to have to break up the friendship groups. And it's so muddied at the moment that at the very least KCC should be working closely with the school. And if there's no correspondence there, I think that's a fault. The second point is, I'm glad to hear that Mike supported us, Mike Hill. He's a cabinet member. Does Mike, he's got communities in his portfolio. Does he have children's education in his portfolio?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, who's the education cabinet member?
I don't know, but Mike's response to me when I spoke to him before my holiday, and this was about a day or so after you had got on to him, I think, first, and his immediate reaction was, I can't believe that my colleague, the education cabinet member, knows anything about this. This has been done at officer level. Now that may be true. Yeah.
Well,
but
now is the
what
time.
it's now gone on to is that the member panel has supported it.
Well, 2 points there. First of all, I just think mindful of Roger's question about who to write to. First of all, Paul Carter should be now included in this. He's the leader of the KCC cabinet, so he should be involved in this, because some of his cabinet members are just drifting through this, unaware of the implications of poor planning coordination. I mean, the buck stops with him. Second thing is, do we know who was on the appeals? Were they all cabinet members on the appeals?
No, I don't know much, but I understand from
Can we request who was on the... I mean, I think the time has come now where we really have to start
I think
building our information portfolio.
I would have thought they were independents, or they should have been.
My understanding,
independent.
I asked Mike today, now this was all a bit vague, to be frank, but it was members, and I said, is this a panel for appeals in education, or is it across the council? And he said it's across the council. So I had the impression, but I may have got it wrong, I may have drawn the wrong conclusions, that they have a panel that decides appeals in all sorts of things, and they're the ones who sit on the appeals panel, and this came to them for education with Helen, and another time it could be refusal of a waste licence, or it could be, you know, something else or something else.
So it would be fair to suggest maybe that they haven't been appraised of all the facts and the history and the discombobulation in terms of policy sharing.
I can't tell you, but obviously Helen was there yesterday with Mike, and like it's a bit like a court case, it's up to them to present their case. I suspect, but this is maybe slightly unfair, I suspect that it was just, well, here's the officer's report, they will tell them what the legislative background is or whatever, and they say, well, obviously the officers know what they're doing. That's
the officers can only know what they're doing if they are appraised of all the information first of all. And the other thing is, I do think it's time to sort of recognise that it does involve another county, and is this now KCC precedent, not just here, but across the whole of the county? And are they in communication with their
potentially national if this is going
Well,
on.
I think what we need to do is we need to start building our questions.
Sure.
And who's involved and what have you, because you only really get one shot at this, and we need to start to build the awareness and the questions and make people, you know, are fully aware. Because if you do involve the media and you build a social media or public case, we need to make sure it's as watertight as possible. You only get one shot at this, and the media are not interested unless there's a really juicy story in it. But if you can have a headline of, you know, KCC new policy to split families, or people on low incomes now being forced to borrow at high rate. I mean, you can make, the papers love a story like this, but you only get one shot at it. So my suggestion is that we need to start building, you know, who's involved in this, who are the people, start to have a list of
Well, Helen is going to give us some more data. We know quite a few of what appear to be facts. I have raised this issue about distances, and I think that at the very least, if Mike doesn't come up with anything, I've emailed him today with it. I asked him first on the phone, and I've emailed him and reminded him. I think he should come up with real data on how they've done the distances. If they don't, I think we can put in an FOI.
How did you measure the distances?
I did it along the road because my understanding from one of the policy things I saw, when I was a child it was a crow's fly, as the crow flies. According to one of the policy things, now it's said according to the road distance. So Google went along the road, and I did it through Dead Man's Lane, then round the long way in each direction, and I did it to Homewood.
But that's not what KCC's policy says.
Which
it says the shortest available walking road.
That's right.
And you can use footpaths.
Oh no, hold on a minute. No, we're getting. I agree with that, but that's a confusion, if I may put it that way. You have to be over 3 miles to be eligible.
Yeah.
Yes.
There, you've got the walking.
Yeah.
If you can walk across footpaths and be less than 3, they won't give you any money. Once you're more than 3 miles, they've got to pay for transport, but only to the closest school. It can't be the closest school you walk to once it's 5 miles, because they can't require you to walk 5 miles.
But that's how they measure it.
Well, then they've
that's
done
how
wrong.
I read it. That is how they measure
then
it.
in that case, they've confused themselves. There is no way that
Well,
you
then,
say you must be able to go in a bus and we'll pay for it, but we'll measure the walking distance. That would
well,
be.
if it's total
that would be
confusion, that
daft
says it
even
all,
for
doesn't
them.
The
it?
other point is, where is the Rye College drop-off point?
Well, I did wonder if they were playing games about that.
Because that is not on the corner of Dead Man's Lane when you come to the college. Because if a bus stopped there, it would cause total confusion in the rush hour. So I've got a feeling they either drive round and then go into the coach car park, or they go round to the right and there's a drop-off point there, and you might find that has an impact on the calculation.
It's all true. I did wonder about where they would call it, but I mean, the policy is the school, not the coach drop-off point. It's the nearest school. Otherwise, they could say, well, we'll drop you off a mile away from the school, and that will be shorter.
Well, yes.
But all of this is so.
We need to know it from them exactly how they've measured it, don't
Well, I
we?
think in
That's
a
what we
way,
want.
in a way. All you've got, Helen, and let me just say, we'll just break off for a moment so you can answer me. All you've got is that email you passed around. Yeah?
No, I've got lots of emails. I've
No, I mean the reason they found it, or so you've got earlier ones that say why they think they're right.
Yeah. Oh, I've got everything. Yeah.
Would you like to pass that over to us? Copies
I
or
forwarded
original?
everything to
May
you,
have done.
haven't
Yeah, no, I've sent it all on
I've
to email.
passed everything over from everyone, from Roger Goff, everyone.
So we've had everything.
I think so.
I mean, I've only seen a few emails. I haven't seen Kent's coherent case for why they think they're right. As in our policy says this is the facts. Da, 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 da.
As in the response to my appeal as to why they refused.
I mean, I know I've seen what they said to refuse you.
Right,
that came today.
No.
It was the other lady.
Weeks ago, my first appeal.
Oh, it was the first appeal, was it?
This is my second appeal.
Oh, I see. Who was the first appeal to? Roger Goff?
KCC. to KCC, so have to appeal to their in-house, which then they refused, which then they also refused, referring to me as a different parent, i.e. Helena, down the road.
Wow. Easy mistake.
Well, referring to my elder sibling at school, even though she's my firstborn. Which was a complete blanket response from them as to why they refused that appeal. And then, obviously, I then had to take it to this appeal.
Could we see that, either those, either copies or originals, if that has to be?
Weren't they the copies of the letters we had last month?
Because I'm going to say yes.
Literally
I haven't just seen
No, you haven't. No.
Okay.
I've spoken with everyone.
We had the
possible,
copies
and
of the letters
even-
last month.
Even the head of Homewood, the head of finance department, Mark Seymour, who's been 100% supportive in the whole ordeal. Even emails from him and one from Mike Hill, even saying that Roger Goff had even spoken with the panellists, should I say, and I should get a favourable outcome because they can't be seen to overturn the decision.
So can we just ask you, Helen and Yvonne, just to assemble all this argument that Kent have made, so we understand what their case is, and obviously make sure we're not trying to attack a bit that is solid, but only look for the weaknesses. Because, I mean, we're pretty sure it's weak in a few places, but there may be some areas where, they really do have the facts.
Yeah.
The policies and things like that. But this is a complicated mess.
Yeah.
And the easiest thing for KCC to have done is to have intentionally or accidentally confused the whole thing, got the wrong end of the stick, determined that they're right when they're not, and then defended.
Yeah. The problem at the moment is obviously their policy, which you are right in by the public footpath and all things like that. That's how it's measured now. That is how
they can't measure more than 3 miles by walking. If they're doing that, then they're bonkers.
But that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying in the policy.
That is my point.
If that is what they're doing, if that's what they're doing,
that is what
then they
that's why
are
we need
so
to know.
irrational as
exactly.
to be hard to
That's
believe.
why us parents cannot believe that even going to the appeal yesterday, that is still point blank refused.
I mean, let's just
That's
say you were in the north of, I know it's not the same, but let's just say you were in the north of Scotland and you were 20 miles from one school and 22 from the other, or something like that. And then they started saying, but it depends on how far it is by walking. That's what they're saying, in fact. I understand below, I agree with you, I read that. And below 3 miles, I mean, I think probably I made the mistake of assuming they had half a plane. The point about walking applies under 3 miles because you can require a child legally to walk up to 3 miles.
That's not what it says, though.
No, I understand that.
Can I just can I read something out as a point of information? I thought it might be useful to look at the Rye College admissions policy. The community areas, and they used to be known as the catchment area. If you understand
that's what the woman said today.
The community area for Rye College is Camber, East Guildford, Fairlight, Guestling Green, Guestling Thorn, Icklesham, Iden, Peasmarsh, Pett, Playden, Rye, Udimore, Winchelsea and Winchelsea Beach. And there is a website for application, and it's basically East Sussex County Council with a whole load of suffixes out. So they're very clearly, Rye College have not put down half of Wittersham, etc., stocks and so on. And I just think that's important as part of your evidence.
Up to a point.
To note.
You're right up to a point, but today the woman I talked to said, but we do have quite a number of children from Ashford. And I said, that's strange, and then I said, of course they come on the train, and she said yes. So
yes, but that's out of this is published policy.
No, indeed.
They might well have people from Ashford, but that is outside of the published policy, so they are exceptions. So if KCC are saying children from this village have to go, they have to make a case to East Sussex County Council Education Department for exceptions to their policy. They can't just ride roughshod and impose one county's education policy on another. It would be mayhem. And I just think somewhere in all of this, there have been some administrative massive errors. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand, and maybe what we should try and do first of all is flag up the one-off opportunity to get this right
And they're also,
before it hits the headlines.
They're trying to get away with it.
There's a new person in post who's been told to find ways of cost cutting,
Sure.
and he's sticking his heels into the ground, and he's not.
Yeah,
but
he's having a go.
he's found a way to cost cut, and he's sticking with it, come what may.
So what the next thing is, they'll say we
much.
can't use the rubbish dumps in Kent. Well, our nearest one is actually over the border.
Strangely enough, I believe that Sussex is entitled to turn you away. You should
Yes.
live in the
Yes.
county.
Or they can charge you.
Okay. Is there anything else we have to say about this, pending getting the data from Helen and an assembled pile of all the things that might guide us, which are all electronic, I think. Anything else for us to say at this point? I think we've got to get on with it because time is running.
Can I just say, the KCC application date for September next year, Year 7, the closure is the 31st of October.
This year.
So, for next September, so
Yes, short
it'll be
period.
happening again.
It'd be interesting to know how many children who will be leaving Wittersham Primary School would wish to go to Homewood. I suspect it's more than one or two.
I mean, it's obviously got around an awful lot, but
it's not worth trying to make as many
Pardon?
people as it's not worth at this point trying to make as many people in the village aware of
I
the
think
situation.
probably most of the
before-
parents do.
Yes, but obviously there are people who are not parents.
Well, possibly the first thing we should consider doing, we've got 10, 20 days, possibly the first thing we should be doing, or almost the first, as we're doing the rest of it, is to write formally, either us or Claire or both or whatever, to Homewood and Kent County Council, Carter let's say, demanding, not asking, demanding that the application deadline for 31st of October for next September must be deferred until this policy has been resolved, because parents can't make a rational choice. And copy that to the MP. I mean, you can't have a complete shambles and then ask people to be tossing a coin.
That's a very good idea.
This is a good idea.
Because that screws Homewood, it screws KCC, and it's entirely reasonable. And maybe at that time we have to make clear, if this is what we want to do, that their decisions yesterday and the end of this, 2 weeks' time, are not the end of it.
Can I ask also that you go out to Rye College and speak to the person who is responsible for admissions and just ask them the question, are they aware that KCC are now advising a number of pupils that they're no longer welcome at Homewood, they have to go to Rye College, and have they been advised of that?
Well, it's not that they're not welcome at Homewood.
No, sorry.
They're being taxed to go to Homewood.
They're being, yes.
This is free education.
It's whether they can afford,
I'm not. This is no
whether the parents can
inclination on
afford
Homewood.
it.
No. Sorry, you're right. No, but I just feel that
They're being pushed.
if someone in Rye goes, huh? It's the first we've heard of it. That again is an important point to make to Paul Carter and his cabinet.
Well, not the first, because I told them today, but I know what you mean. So to speak to the relevant person.
I'd certainly want to know, if I was the principal of Rye College, that other counties were planning to send pupils.
Yeah.
Because I bet you his or her, I don't know if it's his or her, I bet you his or her view on the budget is very, it's really tight.
Well, money follows pupils, remember?
Well,
But
yeah.
it probably
And where
follows
does it come
pupils
from,
with a
though?
bit of a nudge. Government.
Directly.
When we went to the highway seminar, at least me and maybe you as well, and they did a budget last year or the year before, they actually showed us the whole of the KCC budget to put themselves in context. And when it came to education, it said naught. And the explanation was we get paid in KCC by the government exactly what we spend on children. But not, according to Mike Hill, for transport, only education. Okay, can we call it a
Well,
whole
sorry
split
to
on that?
persist, but is it so? It's too early to say flag it up in the
I don't think there's any harm in putting it on the Facebook and
or
whatever if
in
you
the
want
village
to.
magazine.
Well, that won't come out until the end of this month, of course. And there will be a report from me on the council meeting, which I can put this point in, obviously.
Yes, but I think
Go
it
on
would
next
get
door
hidden
and,
away.
Those can go on next door.
I think it
And
needs
people
to
put it on.
page
If
on
people,
Facebook.
people could put it on Yvonne if you wish, and if we wish rather, and if Yvonne can. Put it on next door
Well, I
and
think
Facebook.
Helen put it on next door when it all
Did.
first
Yeah.
blew
Okay.
up.
But we can put it on saying the council is, if we are about to do that then, we're taking this very seriously and doing what we can to bring the thing to a proper resolution.
To answer Roger's earlier point, would it be appropriate in the Outlook on Oxley, in your report, to say, for anyone who wants to make their feelings known, please write to Paul Carter at the following address?
I don't
think
know about that. The trouble with the write-in is that as
Well-
soon as there's a write-in, it just discounts any. It's kind of, oh yeah, here's another, campaign from whatever that group is, something 38 that has millions of people write about everything. It means that if we then put our own letter in, it's just another one in the pile. So I don't.
A really effective petition is more likely to have an effect,
Yeah.
and getting the entire village to sign up to the
So
petition.
therefore the
Yes.
village needs to know about it, and I'm not
ne-
sure whether
next
how
door
many
on
people read.
Facebook would be the way of corralling people into a petition, I think. And it's the sort of thing the village would actually sign up to, because we realised
Yes.
we were having, we're losing our pub and we're losing
Yeah.
our school transport,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's easy to forget Wittersham on the edge of the community, and I think a petition would be something that the village would go for.
All right.
I agree.
I don't mind that. Okay. Can I draw a line under you?
I can't say.
Can I draw a line under that?
You
And
should.
can I draw a line under that, please? And just let me break off the moment. Is there anything you want to add, Helen, before we move on?
No, other than just please help.
Well, you can tell that we are very sympathetic.
Yeah.
We are engaged. We will do what we can. I can't honestly say we'll necessarily win, but definitely I'm absolutely sure Writers on our side and your side. It's just that doesn't always,
No.
not always enough, but it should be.
So is there any way at all that, as a parish, if it's going to the council to have the policy overturned, would that not be something that we could possibly achieve?
Oh, well, I'm hoping we can achieve it, but
Yeah.
all I'm saying is I can't promise we will achieve it
Right.
because ultimately they may just be downright obstinate
But
and
that is
refuse
what
to
we're
do
going to
anything.
be
But we're
aiming
going
to
to
do.
put pressure.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We will do everything we
Our-
possibly can to
our
explore
aim
every
will be to
option
do that.
to get that done. I think that's fair to
We will
say.
put pressure on wherever we can. The trouble is that ultimately, I mean, the Ombudsman taking them to court is a wonderful answer. It may or may not happen. But for most purposes, we need Kent to agree that they've cocked it up and changed their mind, so that at the minute they're not minded to look
I
at
have
that.
that in writing, they said
Yeah.
it was in error,
Yeah.
that it was done in error.
Well, let's see all of that.
But in the meantime, would you, because we'd already spoke as parents that we want to get the papers and everything involved in that.
Do that.
Would that be okay, or is that, I was even thinking that maybe get the head from both schools involved in this as well.
I don't think there's any harm in you
No.
stirring the pot.
Good, okay, because that's what I intend to do.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Right, thank you very much.
Thank
so
you.
let's move on. You're welcome to stay, but you don't need to.
I'm going to go. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, we're now on to the planning application, a bit later than usual. So, who wants to start us on Shenley Cottage? I'm looking at
Can't
George
see
as
any
usual.
problem with it at all.
I don't see any problems with it.
No.
It doesn't seem to be overlooking anybody or interfering with anybody. So I
No.
don't really have any
Everyone
objections.
happy?
Fully support.
I thought it was fine. There are no objections from the neighbours to none here. And that was the only time I thought just, if they were all right, then it was all right. I don't think you can see it through the road.
There is already a conservatory on the back of the other house.
Alan,
isn't
you
there?
can't.
Alan,
You can't.
So. Right.
Do you sign
Well,
it?
somebody else will tell me.
The plans.
Yes, there's something certainly there.
Would you sit in here?
It's all right, yes.
so you're happy.
So we'll
You're happy
fully
with
support.
the name.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're happy with all
Yes.
that and we'll
Yes.
support it. Thank you.
Yes, we'll support.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well,
Thank you for the rest of it. It's been very interesting.
I wish it wasn't.
Sign the petition.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Adopt a child.
Bye-bye.
Tell me that, but you know.
The next one then is the plan, the Ashford Plan to 2030, our special subject nowadays. I think you should all have had my note that I drafted as a first shot for you to see anyway. I don't claim this to be either comprehensive. The thing is, I mean, here, by the way, this is not the plan. This is the amendment to the plan.
Can I say thank you for doing
And I
what you
haven't
did
gone
actually?
through all of that.
Yeah.
What I've done is I have put the, and they don't anyway give what's the amendments. So I had to go back to the earlier one, put the amendments in the relevant sections that I thought HOU 2, 3A, 5 and 6, I think. And 3A and 5 are the key ones, I think, mostly. And they're deeply contradictory. All the time it says this except that and that except this. And I just tried to fill a couple of sides with some points that fitted what I thought probably was our sense of things. I should say, by the way, I rang Simon Cole on Monday when I came back from holiday. I spent about 20 minutes on him. I thanked him for taking out the 40 houses, which I said we always assumed he probably planned to do all the time, because it was obviously such a terrible start. He didn't comment on that. I know that.
Yes.
I know that.
That's why it was only 20 minutes, Jeremy.
But anyway, I also described him as the intellectual part of the planning department, which made him chuckle. But anyway, no, it was amiable enough. So far as I can see, I mean, please tell me that there are bits here that we shouldn't say or say better or add to it or whatever. But I don't think this will change a word or comma. But we will have put down a few markers.
I think what you've done there is set the scene, which allows us to gather information by a number of different means, including the housing survey, so that we can actually go on the, not the offensive, but more the front foot, proactively, you know, work through information we gather over the next 6 months, come up with our own suggestions and ideas, and you've kept the options open because they do range from small ribbon through to, you know, off-road. And, you know, the challenge of getting the appropriate land to do that is, of course, there. But the principles, what we're looking to do in this, and the housing survey, is establish a far more robust platform of information so we can make informed decisions. And I think what you've done here is, if you like, paint the backdrop that's very helpful to that.
When I thought about it,
and it would send a signal to them that we're actually taking responsibility for this.
So far as I can see, HOU 5 for building outside, we've said that there isn't much room inside. That's 3A, so we're in 5. HOU 5 is saying small sites. I'm saying they have to be on the road. And therefore you're building in ribbon development because you go along the road in blocks, following which you've got a ribbon and you've blocked off any access behind. The only way you can build behind, as in a sort of a smaller version of Lloyd's Green or Forge Meads, is what I suggested here, and I dare say they'll tell you it's not possible, is to say, okay, we will and it would normally be an allocated site, but of course that's not what we're getting, is to say, okay, if we did go for this bit of land, could you agree that we can build 3 here 1 year, and 3 there another year, and 3 there another year, and 3 there another year? It's a messy way to go, but we know that our residents, when they have been asked, said they didn't mind up to 5 houses a year, but they, and Miriam has always been very clear on this, that does not mean 4 years equals 20 houses, or equal 12 if it's 3 a year. We'd like 3 a year. But if you start blocking them along the road, you get what you didn't want either.
Also, if you're going to have a development that's not blobbing along the road, it's going to be something like a Coombanks, you know, where it's done. And okay, the averaging out might be at 3 a year, but actually the houses don't get built in the year.
No.
You know, from start to finish, from the application through to someone taking the keys and moving in, it's going to be 2 years. So, and you have to have a viable project.
Indeed.
And that's why in Tenterden they haven't built 20 houses every year for the next 25 years or whatever.
But then even,
That's-
yes,
it's all,
you're right,
you know.
but then even 3 a year, you see, which was, my average of the 5, I suspect that 3 a year is actually more than we really want to cope with.
Well, what
But
we don't know,
you've got
what
to
we,
have viable
but
projects.
Jerry,
You
with
haven't
great
done a
respect,
survey.
is if you go back to the last time we did a survey,
Yeah.
those numbers per year came from the survey data. And actually, that is the target that our responsibility as a parish council is to provide that in relation to need.
Yeah. The 5 a
The
year
next
wasn't a survey, the 5 a year was the Voices survey that said, what would you be prepared to see? That wasn't people who needed it up to,
we
and
did
they
get
said up
we
to 5.
did get
Yeah.
information from the
Oh,
housing survey,
absolutely.
which identified
That was
need.
for the 8, wasn't it?
And well, there's a bit more than that, and the next one that will come out will give us a more up to date.
That's the important bit.
And that's precluding attracting any new people to the village at all.
No, sure.
The population is not going down.
No, you're right. Well, we want it to actually.
Well, we're losing
notch
our
up
resources,
slowly.
our
We
services,
want it to
anyhow,
notch
aren't
up
we?
slowly. Okay, so I don't mind.
Thanks, good.
I don't mind if anyone wants to have another day or two, because I didn't get it out till yesterday. I don't mind if anyone wants another day or two and then puts in any suggestions. But other than that, Yvonne needs to fill it in on the right part of the website or whatever. Which of course will probably say, please answer these 6 questions, and we're saying, oh, we're going to just put in what we want to.
I think we've covered it. I think you have covered everything that we
Yes.
need to say at this point in time in a very positive and creative way. And that's where it should stand at this point in time.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Agreed.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. I'm pleased that you're pleased. Right. Okay, we now move on to Housing Needs Survey update. Paul?
Yep. I sent out the letter to you all, and thank you for the input, which I have updated. I have copies of it here if you want to see it, but it's as it was, with your suggestions.
Does it need any changes because we don't have the 40 houses anymore? Because we were always a bit
No.
sort of didn't know where we were.
No.
No, the question. Okay, so I spoke to Tessa O'Sullivan this afternoon to get an update, because I'm mindful that they've got a lot of other housing surveys, and I want to make sure. And she was under the slight misunderstanding that we were publishing this in November, and was a bit surprised when I said we need them before then. And I went for the 19th of October because you said, I think, the 20. I went for Friday the 19th because you said Tuesday the
23rd or something.
And I just thought, well, let's buy an extra day. I did say that, of course, they won't be posting them out, okay, and so the packs will come as loose inserts into the Outlook on Oxney. They have the facility, obviously, to print up a label and label the envelope. So what you've got is you've got an envelope, and inside the envelope is a covering letter, a questionnaire, and a reply paid envelope. And so I said, well, let's consider tonight the opportunity of, on the label, rather than just putting "Dear Householder, please complete." I mean, you can't get much, but we could have a message on there which said something like, this is important to complete, or for the future of our village, or something. So I was just going to take some suggestions tonight. The labels, you've seen them all on envelopes, but we could put something on there. She was saying she's got a slight problem with staffing levels, in that one of the people who does it is away all this week. So I probably have to, off the record, lean on them a little bit. And I've also asked her how she gets them to us, because I haven't as yet volunteered to go and get them, right? Or volunteered any of you to go and get them. Because I didn't, if they're out and about, there's no point in us doing that. So I said I'd go back tomorrow with, and I've got copies of the letter.
Yes, I think
You've all had this without input from, I think somebody gave me verbal input, and Colin and Jeremy gave a couple of comments. I need to explain to her that the November issue doesn't actually go out in the middle of November. It goes out.
It'll be out by the end of October.
Yeah. And the other thing is, she did ask, what about houses that don't get it? And I said, well, the plan is we're going to ask for them to print 650 copies. 550 will go out with the Outlook on Oxney, and the other 100 can be made available on the Tuesday market at the Parish offices.
Clerk's desk.
Clerk's desk at the church.
Yeah.
And the shop.
Yeah.
And any other suggestions,
Yeah.
you know, and there might be
School.
duplication. And maybe the school actually, yeah. There's a few on that. So,
Okay,
so is that about the right number?
Yes.
So the letter will go out there. What do we say on the? Come on, let's have some ideas. What do we say on the label?
I think something about, you know, the future of the village.
Yeah.
Is in this envelope.
Yes.
Yeah, in the envelope. Yeah.
This is not circular.
Something to make
I would
people
use the word
open.
I would use the word Wittersham. Well, of course, they know it's Wittersham in a way because it's in.
No,
Hopefully it will go to
yes.
Stone as well.
The future of Wittersham is in this envelope.
Yes.
Everyone's
Something
going to
that's-
open it, aren't they?
Yes, yes,
If we
exactly.
right.
Yes, that's quite cute.
Right.
With the finger pointing at you.
Okay, right.
They'll be looking for a pop-up housing
Okay.
model.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Paul.
good. So
Well done,
we then
Paul.
go. Thank you. We then go on to Sid's update, and you've already heard what I mentioned there with Kate.
Yes, if you remember at the last meeting I went back about the grass verge. We couldn't understand that. To be fair, it's very thorough, this man, I have met him. I've got another full page. Thank you for your email, although it is not entirely clear whether you are referring to the grass verges on the Poplar Road or Swan Street, so allow me to elaborate on both. According to the system used by all KCC staff to verify such land ownership issues, the grass verges in the area of Poplar Road that we are looking to install are clearly defined and do not form part of the highway boundary. Therefore, as I have said previously, any installation here will have to be placed on the footway, width permitting. This will still need to be verified, and public consultation in the area will be absolutely vital. I think it is fair to say that this is not ideal, but we cannot just install on the verge if we do not own it. If the footway here is not wide enough, then we will have to reconsider our options, though from memory we are fairly limited by the geometry and features of the road, not to mention an existing VAS sign in the area. As for Swan Street, as mentioned in my earlier email, this is showing as unconfirmed highway boundary. This would suggest that these verges are privately owned, but even if further investigation shows that they are owned by KCC, this does not change the situation. Our installation criteria are now stricter, and I have failed to find a location on this road that was within the 30-mile-per-hour area, safe to install, not obscuring any statutory street furniture, and with an adequate line of sight for the radar. We have already stated that the Swan Street location is no longer viable, and given that this is the only site that I have outright dismissed, and this was not a road that was initially earmarked by the parish for a sign anyway, I do not think that this will be an issue. Our initial site visit was on the 6th of April 2017, and in the considerable time since then, we have installed multiple SID schemes across the county and developed the scheme along the way. We have encountered several challenges in this process, and as such, the scheme parameters have been refined accordingly to address these issues. Our criteria are tighter and stricter, but with this comes increased safety, more effective site choices, and an all-round better scheme for those involved. We will not routinely install on land unless it meets all criteria and forms part of the confirmed highway boundary. In rare instances, we can install on third-party land, subject to the signing of a deed easement by the landowner, who will be required to grant a right of access to the sign on their land. Even in these circumstances, the site still has to be able to function effectively and efficiently without compromising safety, and our professional judgment will be the determining factor. There is still a workable and an effective scheme on a 3-site basis: Stocks Road by the War Memorial, the street opposite the church, and Poplar Road in the vicinity of number 27. These are located 3 locations that, to my understanding, the parish wanted initially, with Swan Street being a nice addition. Therefore, if the parish wish to proceed, I will acquire updated underground statutory information and set about assessing the exact location for installation on Poplar Road. Kind regards.
Very thorough.
Very thorough.
Very unhelpful, really.
I think we should say thank you very much. Yes, please go ahead, get that done, and then at a later date tackle Swan Street, and not let it go. Otherwise, we could be.
Consultation.
Yeah,
Well, public consultation doesn't have to mean sort of. Well, it is what it is. We can put it out to public consultation.
put it on the website.
We've got to consult with people in the immediate area, I think is the point, isn't it? The ones whose houses it's going to go in front of, so they can say they don't like them.
Okay.
Because I think that's what they've had elsewhere. They've had a bit of earache. This is interesting. They'll do the school transport, but they had a bit of earache about some SID signs, so they think, oh dear, we better not do any of them.
Well, I had representation from someone in the village about the sign who was worried it was going to go outside of their house. I won't say who it was at the appropriate at this moment in time. But then subsequent to that, I found out that actually the sign is well within, the proposed site is well within the 30-mile-an-hour limit. In which case this individual will not be affected. Right, so their interest in it has now waned. However, I suspect that maybe where it is going to be, that member of the public might have more interest in it, as ever was. So they are movable, aren't they? As in
It's just a pole.
It's just a pole. What do we do with the pole when it's not in use? Can it be a
tinsel?
Well, you might well put a suggestion like that, but
Just train the top of it.
can we disguise it as a? Can we disguise it as a branch? You know, they do that with telephone masts. They disguise them as trees, don't they?
But they're worse. They're worse.
It's better looking as a mast than it is as a tree.
Well, you know.
So we're saying that
This is all
for him to go ahead and
Yes, do this
identify
underground.
the exact location, then you do the survey,
Yeah.
the public
Yes,
Yeah.
consultation.
consultation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it goes on and on, doesn't it?
Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you. Centenary armistice. We agreed last time that I would get together with Yvonne and Colin and Leslie, if she'd been available, to talk about the plan that we first outlined in February. We did that on Monday. No, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was. Monday, you're right.
It was yesterday.
It's been a long
I remember it
24
well.
It's been a long 24 hours.
Sorry, I've lost track. What did you say?
Yesterday they had a
Yesterday,
meeting
because-
about the armistice.
Oh right, is it still on?
Yeah, well,
The
we're doing it
armistice
on the
is,
11th
yes,
of
I'm sure
November. We haven't got much choice.
You see?
So where we've got to is just a sort of a wash up for you. So the War Memorial has been cleaned very nicely. Everyone's very happy with that.
Very
Good
happy.
job.
Along with the removal of the holly tree behind the memorial, which we did, and the lowering of the back hedge, the memorial now stands out very strikingly in a silhouette from the street. In a way it didn't before. You really can't miss it.
You
now.
can't
It
miss
really
it.
is good. British Legion will decide whether they have a bugler for the morning service. I mean, in principle they will, but they've got to make sure they've got one because we know the other one's not available. And then secondly, whether they propose to sound a bugle call in the evening. I'm
They
hoping I'm
hadn't.
using the
I
right
say
term.
George's was
No?
Then I'm not aware that they're doing that. No. They haven't discussed doing that.
Okay. Well, fine. I mean, I'm just saying it's up to RBL. So maybe RBL won't decide because they're not going to think about it. But whatever.
Oh,
it
yeah,
is,
I've raised it.
It'll be either RBL does it or
Yeah.
RBL doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying here that if, we said yesterday, if there is to be a bugle call in the evening, which they may not do, then obviously it needs to be announced in Outlook, which has got to be out in the next few days, so that anyone turns up.
Mm.
So there's not very long, but
So
I mean, it's
Mr. Chairman, where's the turning up place?
Memorial.
Or
Okay, is that where the beacon's being lit?
No beacon.
There's no beacon
No,
there.
we'll come to that.
Oh, okay.
Bell ringing is being arranged to the extent that there will be the muffled bell in the morning. They still aim to have a peal at the whatever time the national peal is, but it may well be impossible owing to a shortage of ringers when all the churches are trying to ring at the same time.
yeah,
That's according to David Chesson. Because what they usually do when they want to do a peal for a wedding or something, they borrow each other's ringers. It's a bit difficult. So he's trying, but that may or may
You'll
not
let me know
happen.
when. I mean, they're ringing tonight, so they might discuss it, but you'll let me
Yeah.
know.
The 6 a.m. piper and the beacon are not being included in the day's commemorations. I mean, there's just no. We've talked about the beacon before, and there were all sorts of practical problems anyway we're doing it on Lesliesfield, we're getting people safely to get up to Acton Lane and back. So we're not going to do it, and we don't have a beacon, so we're not doing that, I'm afraid. It was in the list suggested nationally, it doesn't fit here.
So there's nothing apart from the normal service, effectively?
There's the normal service, there's the bugler in the evening if they do it, but they probably won't, and there's the bells if you can ring them.
In the evening?
as well.
Yeah. Now the bells, I'm not sure what time it was, there was a particular time set for it.
The battle's over is asking us to ring at 5 minutes past 7
PM.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
The
my
idea of
understanding.
this is that bells are rang simultaneously, but this might not be possible.
Yeah.
They may have to run around the churches. Okay. So I'm afraid that's where we are.
Just do we know where the nearest beach, Danny Boyle installation?
Folkestone.
Is it Folkestone? Okay.
I might get it.
Okay. So that's the feedback, the report back from yesterday. Then the next thing, which is tied in with that a bit, is the boulder for the plaque to commemorate the airship mooring out station update. You've seen a photograph from Yvonne of where it's supposed to be put. It's moved around on the grass a little bit from where I spoke of before, because it's got to be within a distance of the road for the crane to lift the boulder over. It can only go so many metres without tipping the truck over. The boulder has been sourced by George and Yvonne. Indeed.
You did a good job there, George.
Yeah, very good job.
And you were lifting it too, weren't you?
Yeah.
Does it come
Like
just
Atlas
as,
on
does it come just as the boulder, or will we have something like that with it to explain what all this is
I think
about?
that will probably be
Plaque,
down to
yeah.
us.
The plaque.
There's the plaque on
The
it.
plaque.
Yeah, I know that.
The bit that is going to tell you, because that doesn't actually tell you where.
No,
Where it is,
It just
you
says
know,
in
we-
memory of RAF Wittersham, I
Yeah.
presume. Right?
So I think we are going to have to think of
Something.
I think
The information.
describe
thing.
where it is.
The key that he's going to put, if he does what he said he was going to do, is that the plaque will have his website address on it, and the website's got the full details. But we can have an interpretation board if we wanted one. The people supplying the boulder will have to cut a flat side on it so that the thing can go on it. And very happy, well, it doesn't actually affect us directly, it's more for Kenneth J. Bannerman, but they have said they'll provide it for free, having heard what it was for. Bannerman was going to pay for it anyway. They would like publicity for that, which I totally understand, but I do think that we need to then make sure that Bannerman knows that the quarry company will be seeking publicity, but then he's saved the money for the boulder.
I know it's not necessarily directly linked as such, but actually given that the airfield was a First World War airfield, isn't it? Is there any way this can be in situ by November the 11th?
It would be nice if it could be, but we're getting rather late. We haven't got the plaque here
We
yet.
can have the boulders up there.
Right.
Yes.
Certainly.
That's what. That was my
Because that's-
understanding.
Because that's what I would like
Yeah.
for you to agree tonight,
Yeah.
to say,
Yes.
to agree where it goes, so I can go back, because that's what they're waiting for now.
Indeed.
Whether
So
we get
they-
the plaque is the other issue, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, he was pressing us a month
Yeah.
ago to give him the address so he could ship it. He
Yeah.
said it's made.
Oh, right.
And
It's
they've
made?
acquired it. Oh, yeah.
Well, then there's every chance, if we get the boulder in time and we put the plaque on it, that it could be unveiled
Yeah.
on November the
A bit of
11th.
brew tack on there and we'll be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what our hope is, Paul.
Provided the boulder hasn't a flat bit cut on it to
Oh,
It has,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
They're
yes,
gonna do
yes,
all that.
it's
and,
going to
and,
be-
and of the same size as the
and
plaque.
they've got all the details.
Have you chosen the colour?
We're not amateurs, you know.
I knew you weren't, so I thought I'd better check.
Just say it's the foundation stone for the
It
new
couldn't,
housing
it couldn't
development.
possibly go wrong. Okay, so that's the boulder, which is good news, I think.
Yes.
Now, the update following the meeting with the Voices chairman, Yvonne and I were, the suggestion I made last time, which you all gratefully accepted, was that we would go and have a meeting with the chairman of Voices and go through it to decide what we were really still on, because we'd run into the sand. I can give you all one of these for your records, and then I will, if you wish, skim through them. You can take these away. What I'm suggesting, I didn't want to print the whole thing for you, is you just scribble on the last copy of your spreadsheet. So they then match with these. with, you know, the spreadsheet, 1112 and all the rest of it. The code there, the hieroglyphics as the church would call them, and I put it here as well at the top, but I ought to explain because it's not absolutely straightforward. A tick means we've had some kind of success. We've done something, we've had some kind of success, and we are not going any further with it. It may be that we've got something slightly different, but a tick is we've done something, and we call it a success. So, for instance, 1.2 next door is a substitute. That was about the village website. We don't have a village website, we have a council website, but next door is now doing that job to a degree, okay? So that's a tick. A cross doesn't mean a complete no-no necessarily, it might do, but basically it means we're not going to do anything else. We haven't had what we call a success. We may have had a partial success, we may have had some alternative, but we didn't feel we could give it a tick. But it's beyond our ability to do any more, and we're just not going to keep trying. It's dead in the water, one way or another. And then a naught, an O, is where we still have got that in mind to achieve something more. So they're the work in progress ones. And essentially, just going through the O's, we'll ignore the rest. These are the work in progress ones. Wi-Fi in the village hall is 1.3. 2.3 is transport in the community, which I'm going to mention a few words on later. Transport, 3.1 is speeding through the village, so we've got the SIDS. 3.2 is traffic calming. We're talking still, or we may be able to talk about the sort of gates at the, you know, that we've talked about before. 3.6, the minibus service is tied in with the community transport. School transport, now very lively, I've said it here. 4, local amenities. 4.1 is public transport to be available at the end of school hours. Well, this is back to community transport again. Turning over 5.1 is the housing survey, and 6.4 is increase awareness of the publicly owned spaces. We said we'd put signs up, which we haven't done yet. So they're the ones that we actually want to focus on now, and the others we're saying they've either gone where they're going to go to, or wherever they went to, we're not going to go any further. Okay? And you can match them up for yourself.
Can I just add?
Please.
Taken from my notes that when we were discussing the fact that we always talk about Roger Parker being chairman of Voices. Well, as he pointed out, he doesn't have a team anymore, so he's not actually chairman of Voices. So we're taking these as individual items, that now they are things that we're taking over rather than a joint Voices.
Okay. I thought he was life president.
Yeah, almost so.
Hereditary.
And there was going to be a drinks party.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Next thing is the task list review. Now, when I was looking at it this afternoon, knowing that school transport had blown up at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I just said to myself, I propose we skip this tonight because I thought we were going to be spend a long time already. And so we skipped that bit.
Which one is that?
Task list, because it's longer term. It wasn't crucial now tonight. But I did want to. I thought, well, we'll have worn ourselves out by then. The next one is the petitioning of additional names to go on the war memorial. Now, we've done the research on the names, we've agreed to do them, but I did have a worry on Tuesday night driving back from Evon's doing the agenda last week. Suddenly thought we'd have to check on the listed building status, because it is grade 2. And Yvonne checked with Ashford and said, sorry, planning application before you can do anything to it. So, there we are. Now, before we can ask for the planning application, good night, Roger, good night,
Good night, thank you.
Phil.
Have a safe journey.
Think of us here at 11:30.
Yes. There might be some school children waiting for transport.
Good night. Thanks for coming.
We've got to tell them what we're planning to do.
We've got to decide what we're going to do, and the problem there is the lack of space on the 14-18 panel. The only thing I can see being doable The 3945 is all right.
Yeah.
1418, there's the one in the middle. Therefore, assuming that the mason can do it at all, and you may say no, wrong stone, it needs to be done in smaller letters at one end. You know, so it won't be the same size. You can't get the same size in. It's just there's no room.
The only other suggestion that I've had, talking to people in the Legion, which I don't think is a starter, is to put it on the panel above.
Yeah.
I agree with
But
you.
then it's
actually
the title of
yeah.
what it is.
I-
So it doesn't make any sense.
It's not only the title, above the title, it's also giving precedence
Yeah.
to one of the ones that has lower precedence because they didn't think it was right at the time.
I agree with you, George. I think it is in the wrong place. It is. If we put it in the same section, it can only be in the smaller. But I don't think that diminishes the situation.
No.
If it's a listed building, do you have to get somebody other than the planning officer to look at it? I just think. I'm just thinking of examples in the village where people with listed buildings, they've actually had, Roger Kimber, for example, it wasn't just the planning officer who came along, but it was also the historic or listed building person. They ended up having an argument.
Not to mention the Victorian Society and English Heritage and
So they could go to English Heritage if they felt they ought.
But now we know that we can't go ahead without permission. Let's make sure we get the right permissions. Is it doable? And I think the most important thing is that this all started off with one or two members of the Legion saying the council weren't doing enough to get this done. Well, we've done a fair bit. If it's now no longer possible, and I did make the point at the last meeting to ask the Legion for suggestions as to where they think it should go, which is exactly what you come back. But we do need to make sure that we are allowed to do it in the first place.
Well, that's what we've got to apply.
It's not going to happen before November the 11th, is it?
We've got to apply. It's sad. We've got to apply to ask the council, and we can't apply to ask the council until we know exactly what we want to do.
Yep.
So the next stage is to check with the stonemason what's possible.
What size?
How much? What height he can do it. And then we could submit it for approval. But I think the message is we got to the last stage, haven't we?
Yeah. Is it the sort of thing the planners are going to agonise over?
No.
Michael?
Well,
who knows?
yeah, quite.
Well, I thought Michael might.
That's why I asked it.
It is artistic, of course. It was a decent sculpture.
When it comes to listed buildings, I don't have any faith in anybody's plan, because I think that 90% of it should not be listed. But that's only my opinion.
Well, we're very proud to have this listed. It's quite rare.
Well, that's fine, yeah.
Do we put his name on the boulder?
But then the windmill's listed
there
as
is
well.
space.
No, even know where that is, most of the village. So just take it as
Was he in the
another
air?
one.
Yeah, sure.
I think we can announce in due course that we're applying for planning. You get planning permission now, and the two names will be at some stage, if approved, will be
So I
dealt
can
with.
report that
And if one of them can be carved.
Yes.
the Legion meeting on Thursday evening, I should report that.
Yes, if you would, George.
Thank you very much, George.
I agree.
Pre-planning
So I'm going to
Yes.
request.
Maybe
You
we should
know,
have one in the
whoever's
church.
going to do it. And you might get guidance from that.
Yeah,
We
true.
don't need permission.
That won't cost anything.
Well, we could have
Good.
a bonfire.
Okay.
I'm all for no cost.
I mean, because you're not going to get planning permission by the time
No.
November gets.
Position.
Oh,
But we'll at least
Well,
Not
it's
this
not
year,
that.
anyway.
No, you won't be asking me.
It can't keep going, George. It just can't keep going.
49,
You know, there's got to be an end date on something.
We've only had since 1924.
Okay, thank you. I see that you're thinking about going.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming.
When you get to 16G,
day.
Yeah.
you might like to read that.
Okay, thank you.
After Mick's left the room.
Yeah.
Give him a flying
Actually,
start.
it's addressed to me, so I suggest that it doesn't go.
Beyond the room.
Self-destructs. Okay. I won't
Like
read
a
it.
Banksy,
might
like a Banksy
I
painting.
won't read it out
Isn't that
loud.
amazing?
No, all right, yeah, as you wish. Anyway.
Okay,
Take care, Mark.
Yeah, this man wants to do the same thing, right?
thank you.
Did you want to chat, Paul?
No,
No.
nothing personal. But you dealt up the listed building.
Oh, good.
Yeah, on the 95%.
Sorry if I confused you, because
No.
if you find a way around it, it'd be great. Do you listen? Good night.
Good night.
Was that like a extra smell?
Yeah.
I think you said it was over, didn't you? No.
Okay, community transport update is the next. I knew that the Wolverhampton had got a minibus before I went on holiday, and then Sue emailed me to say it had been in the local paper, the Wolverhampton Rocket. I went to see Duncan Murray, who's my opposite number at Wolverhampton, as soon as I got back to hear about it. On the 2nd of October, Monday, week ago. They've got a pilot scheme there. So he told me a bit about it, although interestingly he didn't know very much. He said really it's the vice chairman and someone else does it all. A tip there.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Do you want to say it again?
Louder! And then the next day, the 3rd of October, was the Community Transport Committee at Tenterden Town Council, which I go to. That was interesting because for the first time the two people from Wolverhampton who were running the rocket came, and even more importantly the cabinet member from Ashford who funded it.
Wow.
He turned up. He's I think a member for High Holden, someone told me. No, not High Holden, Woodshire. Wareham. You keep telling me that.
Yeah.
Wareham. It was because someone told me there that he was High Holden, and it stuck.
Well, it might be High Holden as well, but it's definitely
Could be.
Wareham.
Yeah, no,
It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Wareham to High Holden.
Never mind.
It's got a minibus as well.
The key issue there, yeah, he has. The key issue there is that he stressed he's cabinet member for well-being and stuff like that. And he said the rocket is funded as a well-being initiative, not as a transport initiative. It's to get people around, avoid isolation, help the oldies do, you know. It's up to Wolverhampton what they do with it. It's just a pilot to see if it works. But they've released this.
It's a minibus,
Rocket.
community
What is a
transport.
minibus?
So it's
Okay,
there,
I realise
it's
what
there
you're saying.
as a service
when I put
for...
it like this,
It's a
yeah, or one of
15-seater.
those, you know, the old
15-seater minibus, and it
Yeah.
says Wolverhampton Rocket on the side.
Right, okay.
It's available at 8:15 in the morning. To run
So
through
what would
it.
ours within that?
What would ours be called?
So who knows? Now,
Wittersham Whippet.
okay, it's a wellbeing initiative, and it was confirmed by Ashford
Could it be
that
available
the-
at 8:15?
that the restriction on it being used for Wolverhampton only, which is what Wolverhampton said. Duncan Murray said, I can only use it for Wittersham. It's in the agreement.
Wolverhampton.
Wolverhampton.
Not Wareham.
Come on, we want to get through.
These minutes are going to be
The
fascinating.
ABC man said he's not stuck on that. He's very happy if it gets used more widely. It will probably have to be done with officers, but he doesn't have a problem with it. That's because I raised the question. And it turned out that they'd already turned down Biddenden, so they were very happy to hear the Ashford man saying they could use it for other people. The pilot's running for 18 months. By the end of that, it's supposed to be meeting its costs. Now, there seems to be uncertainty as to what they are. Duncan Murray thought it was the interest on the lease, but I got the impression at the next day that it was the whole cost, and it was really expensive.
Yeah.
What they're doing with it is they are taking it 1 day or 2 days a week to Wolverhampton for shopping. Another day it goes to Hastings for shopping.
Tenterden goes from...
Wolverhampton to Tenterden.
Yes, you didn't say.
Too Wolverhampton. Very short journey.
I should
The
try-
Linklater's were really pleased about that.
Get
in
on-
Wolverhampton.
Try and get me my brain into gear. Okay, to Tenterden, and Hastings. It's also being used for some clubs, and they also started with 3 the first week, but now about 10 or 12. They run up to the sports centre in Tenterden every Friday night for the teenagers to go rollerblading or some similar thing.
Yeah.
They are charging £3 a return for somebody to go to the shopping trip to Tenterden. It was 4, it's now 3. They said some people very impecunious, they get the rocket one way and then get the bus back after the bus passes start, because it goes at 9 o'clock in the morning. And it's all driven by volunteers who've had to go off and have be tested to drive it. But if they've got a D1 licence, I'm too old for the D1 licence now. Mine dropped off.
Should we say
George
that?
should have
What's the D1 licence? I thought we all have one. It's just the new generation.
No, if you've had your licence long enough before they stopped putting it on.
Yes.
And if you're not 70 like I am, when it drops off again. They don't need it.
A lot of things drop off after 70.
They do. They don't get renewed at 70.
I'm disappointed that our medical expert is not commenting on this.
No, he's just getting
come on, let's get on.
So
they charge, if it's approved that it could be used for Wittersham, let's say, and we wanted it, and we'd have to find a driver and get them tested because they don't want to be using their drivers. Ashford doesn't want them to be using their drivers. Everyone should have their own. Then it costs £2 a mile for the bus. After 50 miles, it's £1. So the trouble is, of course, it starts in Rolvenden, so it's 10 quid to get it here. You know, then whatever it does. But if you're going to do a decent trip, which doesn't, which sort of puts the 5 miles into the shade, and then you've got 10 or 12 people on the bus. It takes I think it's 15 I think plus the driver. So if the horticultural wanted to go to Great Dixter or this or that,
it's an interesting thought because the only reason I mention is that I've just completed some work in East Kent merging 3 charities, and my job is to look at the financial systems and the processes that included the community transport bit. So it was interesting that the community transport structure there from each of the 3 charities were from basically Broadstairs, Dover, Deal, Folkestone, Chepway, quite a big area, and they were charging about £4 a journey and 45p a mile. So if you work that out, it's not wildly dissimilar.
No.
And they were getting something like, between the 3 charities, probably around 300 plus regular monthly users. They built it up over a period of time. And the reason I mention that is that directly connecting me is my father in Cranbrook, and they have a community transport. You have to get to the hospital, and so they have a volunteer transport bureau, the same way as all the others. And I don't think we have. Do we have anything around here at all?
Yes, we do. We have a
volunteer
transport bureau, not transport.
Okay, volunteer bureau, but do they provide transport?
They do transport.
They do transport, that's right.
Yeah.
But closer to home, and this is my next point, the Tenterden Social Hub, as they now call the day centre, here we get into things that are quite surreal. Having taken a huge grant, or having savagely cut the grant that KCC gives to the Social Hub, they've just given them 65,000, I think it is, for a new minibus as a grant, to replace one of the old ones. The new manager has arrived to replace Liz Thorne. He's only 3 days a week now. He's just getting his feet under the table. He was at the meeting on Tuesday as well. And he, interestingly, what you said in effect earlier, George, as soon as I told them about the grief over the school transport, and I told them not because it was directly relevant, but because I said it shows that transport is all a bit chaotic at the minute. And he said, I could do that. He said, because my buses don't go out till 9 o'clock. So if I came down to Wittersham and picked all the children up and took them back to Tenterden, you don't have to be paid, of course. And I think it may be dearer. But anyway, if I did that, then I can go and do my day job with the oldies. And I said, what about in the evening when you want to take them back at the same time as they come out of school? I could work it out, he said. So, there's someone actually being positive. The trouble is that I just don't think, I thought it was £280 a year. If it's £400 a year, it gets easier to compete if there are enough children doing it. But the trouble is, the parents are still going to pay, whether it's slightly less or not. But of course, they would be able to not have to worry about the wait until 4 weeks after the term started.
Well, what about parents who haven't got the income? Is there a means testing avenue on this?
My mind on that, when asking Helen for more information, is, I think I said, didn't I? They could do with someone on benefits to get legal aid.
Or single.
But actually, Colin's suggestion may fix all
if you're on low income, you can get the free transport. What the low income figure is, I've no idea.
Oh, I see. So, but then they're not going to give free transport to somewhere that isn't the nearest school. Otherwise, that is bonkers. That's saying, oh well, I like to go to Tunbridge Wells because I like the school. Oh yeah. And
so should we be considering a pilot scheme with
Rolvenden? That's the last thing. Well, we may very well be able to see if we can tie something up with Rolvenden, although there are some steps on the way. One of which, according to the vice chairman of Rolvenden, a woman, she said, look, if you're going to do anything with us, this is at the end of the meeting, let me suggest, and they've done this, because it's under Section 19 licence, you have to be a membership.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to compete with buses.
No.
So you have to be members. So they have simply signed up every resident of
Walpolden.
in the Walpolden Shoppers Club.
Clever.
And they said, if you're going to do it, do that first.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no that you can charge them 50p. You can't charge them £1.
Charge me anything.
You can charge, yeah.
Anything you want
Do we
to.
know how many people used to get the bus to Jemson's back in the day?
It varied, I
Not
think.
enough.
Not many.
Not many.
No,
But it began.
But is it something that we could, as a pilot, run, I don't know, once a fortnight, a Jemson's trip or
The trouble
something?
is, you see, come to that, they used to charge £1, I think.
Yes,
Yes,
pound
I know-
return.
Yeah.
I know that, but this is suggesting
Yeah.
how do we test the demand?
Do something.
Yeah.
The issue is with
Yeah.
Jemson's, you get to go to Jemson's, and that's what there is. Whereas if you've got the bus to Tenston,
Yeah.
You've got choice.
you've got a
Yeah,
choice of other
sure.
things as well.
That's all true.
Yeah.
And one of the
Banking,
things
for
that the
example.
social hub has been talking about, I don't know if they've started it, but they were talking about this when Liz Thorne was still coming, was that she wanted to run a weekly or fortnightly trip to Sainsbury's in Ashford for the bigger choice. Incidentally, Liz Thorne I met at Calc, she has washed up now, she's running day centres for Age Concern in North Kent.
Do I understand that the vehicle from Walpolden is only for able-bodied people?
It can carry wheelchairs. I don't think it's got a lift. It may have, but it's certainly got a bit of space behind the seats. And incidentally, I said 14 before. It seems to be 16 plus a driver.
Yeah.
That's to say.
Must have a lift, sure.
Well, you would have to have a
maybe
lift,
they
I would have
set
thought.
set off
That
from
was
here.
just asking
It's
a
got
question, you
space
see.
behind.
It's got to be accessible.
Yeah.
Must be.
It's got space behind the seats where you can
Comply
put
with
things in.
legislation, otherwise.
Could we run a Tenston trip from here on a Tuesday, sort of after the morning session? Because you'd have everybody here, wouldn't you? You might have a captive audience then. They could all go off to Tenston for lunch and a bit of shopping. As
You mean after the
After the
market?
market.
yeah.
Aftermarket.
They've done the shopping here though, that's the whole point of
Well,
coming
no,
here. isn't it?
but not everything
Not many.
they want on their shopping list
No.
is
Lots of
Well,
things,
that's
lots of things just
but
coming
they're all
down.
here.
Let's not try and solve it now then,
Yeah.
but I briefed you on what happened.
I think we need to go
There are
Interesting.
some steps to go through, but
Interesting.
it is a maybe.
Might need it.
Okay.
I should have said one other thing that keeps coming in and out of my mind. The Ashford guy says that he would like to have 5 going by April and more later. I think, my feeling at the moment is we would be better, it has its disadvantages, but to try piggybacking on Walpolden first.
To see what demand there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And I don't think he would be sort of falling over himself to put one in
No.
Wittersham because we're so close.
but as you
The other
rightly
thing
said,
is, have we got enough demand?
one of the fundamental things is what the actual costs that Walpolden are going to have to fork out with.
Well,
Long term.
the plan for them is that whatever they charge the users
They're
will be
going
enough
to
to pay for
for
it.
it.
But the pilot is to see whether it is enough.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he was very happy at my suggestion that they've got to take away this obligation
Yeah.
to get enough use.
Yeah.
But they've also then got to get more drivers because
Yeah.
the fear in these things, Wheels and Wheels has a similar situation.
That's right, they do.
That they wear out their drivers.
Yeah.
So they've always said clubs must have their own
Drivers. Yeah.
Then you've got to have somewhere to keep it.
Oh, well, now they're parking it at the village hall.
We couldn't allow that.
Probably not.
Look, if we knock down the wall there, get in here.
There's a bigger issue than that, actually, to be serious. They're parking it in the village hall where it really is visible. If you park it down here,
No, it'd have to be on the front, wouldn't
It'd
it?
have to be on the front, yeah.
With all the other taxes.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, quite.
Okay, so that is. Oh, and the social hub. He got 65,000 for the minibus. I said he's now going to seek another grant to get a development officer to try and make the most of his buses or his new bus. So that's community transport. Now your correspondence. Right. Yes.
On the buses.
Okay.
The annual Kent County Playing Field Association subscription, £20.
Do we agree that?
I just have one question seriously on that. Is what do we get for that?
Yeah.
And the reason is I'm surprised no one mentioned it. We have a playing field of sorts in this village, and
to use it.
well, that's a different issue. But the fact is that it is one of the benefits of being a member of the association that they will take up, advise, guide us, or do they provide any service, or is it just like a good cause?
What is the playing field that's referred to? The one over here? Is that the playing field?
Well, that's the only. No, it's not that one.
No,
it's,
no.
I was thinking the
combination
sports
of
field.
So it's not really a playing field at all, is
No.
it?
Right. So, but there's no member. Are
We've
there any
never-
services?
Ever used them?
But what do they do?
Why were you even doing it?
Do they check over the equipment?
No.
They don't?
No.
It's the playing fields, it's not the play equipment.
I think that what it does historically is protect playing fields, because successive governments of different colours have eaten away at playing fields in this country.
Yes.
And the Playing Fields Association came before many, many years ago to protect those green spaces and amenity. However, so it's historically it was a sort of fighting fund. But actually, my question is, do they actually offer any services to members?
It would be nice to see their accounts in some ways, wouldn't it? Because they may have a huge amount of money there, which is going to the wrong...
And they could have some professionals on their payroll who might be able to give advice.
I do get emails, which I think, if it's applicable, I forward to you, but it's not often.
No.
They spend a lot of money fighting schools, for example, who want to sell off playing fields to their buildings. And
Or villages who want to sell off playing fields.
Okay, it's £20 a year. Do we want to make a statement, as it were, by dropping out? Or
I'm just asking the question of what
I'm just saying, do we want to make a statement by dropping out, or will we just keep...
I don't know what we get for it.
I'd like to know just a little bit more about them.
Yes.
I mean, who are their office bearers, for example? You see? I mean, we could ask, could we not?
We could, yeah.
I always think that when we get a request like this, imagine there was a member of the public who stood up and says, what are we getting for this?
Yeah, well, that's why I was
And what would
asking.
our answer
We haven't
be?
got a playing field, so why are we...
Well, they could
So
put
there's
money
a
into
field,
ours.
Be careful, you'll have residents in Wittersham asking what they get from the parish council.
Well, I'm quite happy to demonstrate
They
that.
do.
Right?
Luckily-
They get a
luckily
bloody
they
great
don't have
big
any
boulder.
Yes, they do, and they expect a lot as well.
And Sue makes the coffee on
Okay.
on Sunday. What more do you want?
I think in terms of supporting an organisation that does a lot of good, I think that's a different issue. But
So you don't mind if we drop it out?
Well,
Well,
maybe
I'd
we
like
should
to know
defer
what they
it,
do.
as Alan said, and just find out a bit more about what the
Okay.
benefits are of membership.
Perhaps you should write and ask them that
Forwards.
your
Yeah,
councillors
I'll
ask you to find out.
for you.
Yeah, okay. Celt Community Award Scheme, while Yvonne is typing, it comes around again, and we have to think at some stage of who we think we could nominate, or of course we have a skip one.
I can also put it out, which is what I've done before, because it's the community can put
Yeah.
names as well, which is where the names have come from before.
Well, I mean, there were quite a few names that come to mind who do an awful lot in the village. I mean, we talked to Jennifer last year.
Just remember we've got the microphone on, so we shouldn't be discussing individuals. It's just the fact that we know we've got to do something.
Yeah.
Okay, so have a thought, have a think, and then we
So
can have
I'll put it in the-
a closed session.
Please.
Okay. Royal Mail. Scan Mail.
Well, it's
Raising awareness thereof.
basically, yes. So I was going to put a thing in the
what?
scan mail.
On the website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah.
Is this scan mail as in snail mail or scan mail as in email?
Well, presumably it's
Mailed. Post office.
That's
It's
real mail.
Yes. Both post offices are they're being
So
used and
they
abused.
never knowingly deliver scan mail. We understand the distress that it can cause. This type of mail is illegal and targets the most vulnerable in society. We want to put a stop to it.
Some of it, it looks very good
Right.
to start with. Yeah.
okay.
Would not the correspondence we had from the police regarding their instructions come under this section?
Which?
Well, the one you sent out to us, which
Oh, the
was,
one, yes. The one
which
that
is from Kent Police.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
going to put on the bottom.
And this is one about the National CSS Green Message, the ACT Youth Film and Lesson Plan, the one that you sent out, about administering CPR to casualties. Don't do it.
Well,
We
if
did send it
I,
out.
if
I mean, my
I
question
sent
is,
it out, I would then put it on
Okay, my question's slightly
On the
wider.
minutes for next.
We get, yeah, I know, but my question is wider than that. Yvonne. So we
Yeah.
get this information that comes to us, and I think that we need to have a think about, maybe not tonight, but we need to have a think about the future, about how we disseminate this information.
Yes.
Because I've seen a number of emails that you forwarded, no objection to that, and I'm thinking, what responsibility do we have to educate the villagers about sort of, what is it, run, hide and prepare, you know, all the stuff that we're getting about terrorism. The latest thing that's why I mentioned it to Kate. The latest thing that quite shocked me is this whole issue of county lines. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the drug epidemic, and I was thinking, well, Weymouth over there, isn't it? And then, of course, the big part of the coverage on Country Fire was Cranbrook. And I was absolutely glued to it. I had no idea this went on, and I think we just need to have a think about, we can't create a perfect world, but I think we need to revisit how we disseminate the information that we get. Have we got a responsibility to do that, or do we just, you know, as a council, I read it and go, that's interesting. I don't go and tell anyone about it.
No, you're right.
I don't know what we, not just you, what we collectively. I think we need to revisit.
Parish does part of that.
Yes, I know, but there are what, 800 people.
Yes, nobody. It's only those. That can
You know, I think
what,
we need to have a better. We need to spend some time in the future about how we disseminate this information more effectively.
I think what I do is I see this, I forward it to you, and
Yeah.
I think as far as I'm concerned, I've sent it to you.
Yeah.
If you want to do something,
I agree.
You come back and say, can we put that on the agenda? Or I think this is something we need to do. I think that's from my point of view.
I agree. I just think we have to be better organised, revisit it and focus.
So we'll assume that question's being asked when we got information.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
What are we doing with it?
We shouldn't line ourselves up for too much obligation either, because big organisations feel, you know, let's take Southern Water. Southern Water send us their latest sort of quarterly plan or whatever the hell it is, or what they've been doing. So they've got so many parish councils they send the thing to. They have got the capacity, if they want to send things out to everybody. We haven't, and we shouldn't. Really
I know. I get. Okay, so I guess what the first thing we need to do.
They're copying out.
The first thing I agree. The first thing we need to do is make a decision as to what we can back and what we don't. And I agree. If there's a 5-year strategy from Southern Water, frankly, I haven't got the will to live to get behind that and start supporting it. However, if there's something that affects young people in our village, vulnerable people, or elderly people, you know, and the scam piece is growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
And by the way, it never happens to you.
No.
Okay, it never happens to anyone you know. You know, we're all far too clever. And I've got instance after instance of people I know personally who I am amazed that they fell for it. But the stuff is so sophisticated. The other day was something where they have recordings of call centres playing in the background to create that, you know. And we can't solve all that. But I'm just thinking when we get some of these things, we need to say, you know, that's something as a parish council we feel we want to disseminate more. And I'm not suggesting it's all up to you. We have a responsibility, you know. So
there are some things, obviously, that I do put.
Of course.
Yes, you do.
Course.
Yes, right.
On the website.
Yeah, no, you
yes.
do.
And sometimes the website it goes through, and that's fine.
And I absolutely applaud. I completely support.
You know.
So maybe at the next meeting we could set aside a few minutes to say, what do we do? How do we decide to do this? What's the practical way of doing it?
Okay, next time. Thank you. Working Party reports, caretaker.
Yes, I have.
Oh, she's back.
Not good. He's going on holiday.
To Turkey.
Hopefully,
Yes.
worse then.
Which is hoping just to do nothing, and for it to, but he's also got a consultant's appointment when
Is
he
he?
gets back. Yes, so what I have said, he's arranged for Biffa to empty the bins in the village. They often do that anyway, but
Do what?
empty the bins.
Yeah.
Because that's something he does every Monday.
Yeah.
So he's arranged for them
Yeah.
to do that. As far as the hedges are concerned, Robert Pudan's been ill. If you remember, I had organised Robert Pudan to do it, and he was going to do it while I was away, and I came back and he hasn't. I chased that. He hasn't been well, but he hopes to get back to it on next week. However, I spoke to Alf today about remembrance, because that's what we needed.
That was the quote.
Now, he's assured me that he will be onto it. Lee has been helping him, so I'd just like to minute our thanks to Lee.
Yes.
Yes.
Giving
Yes.
him a hand.
But I think, you know, as I said to you yesterday, you know, they can get that, make sure that the edge is right for
Yeah.
Remembrance Day.
So, but I have said to him that he must tell me if it's not, so that I can get something organised.
Yes.
So we get a working
And do
party.
me exactly. Well done, George. Yeah, so that we can get that.
All members
But-
of the British Legion.
But he has also, talking about
George.
remembrance, I did mean to bring it up earlier, but he has bollards which he will put across the road for the bit that comes in
Oh, yeah.
to the triangle where
Yeah.
we all stand.
Yeah.
He will put bollards out, so that will help.
Before it happens.
A reduction in the village.
Yes, I think that's all I got under.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's caretaker. Then we've got finance. You've got the monthly transaction
Yes.
statements. We're still doing income here on the caretaker, are we?
Yes, I'm put it over.
Right, is everyone happy with the
Yeah.
Which page are
transaction
we looking
statements? The two transaction
Both
statements first, yeah. I mean, one of them includes the other anyway.
One, you've got one in there, should have it out.
One's
One on one side and one's on the other side.
Everyone happy?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Okay, that's good. And then we've got the 6 months statement,
Yeah.
which probably needs more looking at if we want to when we get home.
We've had just quick briefly, we've had all the money in now from precepts.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that just
everyone
came in
probably
now.
saw. Otherwise, it's fairly okay.
Yes, well.
So is it that half of 27/13 we're at 8.5? Is it just that some charges are back ended?
Yes,
Yeah,
if you look at the
proportionate
things that
gap.
we haven't, you see, I haven't.
Yeah.
The caretaker hasn't gone over, the churchyard we haven't
No.
spent.
No, they just come in late.
Got voluntary support board
Yeah.
we haven't been invoiced for yet.
Okay.
Notice board we haven't bought yet. I have taken the
They're all
expenditure.
commitments,
Yeah.
I think we're well aware of the potential expenditure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So could you just
Yeah, all right.
noted?
Okay. Then there's clerk's expenses that we have to agree £102.35.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so agreed, yeah. Good, thank you. Then we go on to the planning. There's nothing to
There's
say there,
nothing,
is there?
however, I have brought in at this stage, just to let you know, the land on the south side of Postra Court. I've got an update on that. This is from Abby, the planning enforcement officer. I recently served a planning contravention notice on the landowner, which has now been completed and returned. This notice asks the landowner to formally answer questions I have asked in the notice. The landowner confirmed in the notice that the mobile is used as wash area and a tea room only, and that it is not his intention to keep a mobile on the land. He confirmed that he is applying for pre-application advice on the land. I have since spoken to his agent, who has confirmed that they are working on a pre-application, which should be with us within the next month. The mobile will remain on the land for the time being, as the landowner has a horse to care for and is tidying the land.
Okay, just you probably noticed this, but there's a very nice sign.
I was
saying
going to say,
Apple
it's
Tree
a
Farm,
chalk sign.
and there's now a letterbox.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got all the trappings that you would expect
Yeah.
of someone who either has a property built or intends to build a property on there. So
He does intend.
Yeah.
yes, so you know that's.
Just a little bit of an update. There's a community around about at Palstray and so on, and getting really quite agitated about it. And I mean, the things that have happened. Well, yesterday there was a water main going in with a molding company whose name now escapes me. But they put, and I did actually see the blue pipe sticking out of the road at the entrance to Palstray Court, which is where the various lines go off to Meadowgate and to the Oast of Palstray. And then there are various emails flying around saying they're definitely staying there at night, most nights.
Indeed, I've seen.
Yeah.
And the lights are on, and Caroline's been out with her camera and stuff, you know, but there is, and there was a meeting last Saturday at one of the houses, and they're quite agitated.
Right, they've been on to us. Everyone's had it. I've had it. The thing is, it's with Ashford enforcement, and they're the only people who can do anything.
Indeed, and I mean they're not. I mean they've been hoodwinked so far. Whether they continue to be hoodwinked remains to be seen.
Well, we're doing all we can.
Yes, indeed. I mean,
They did go to court over the. I know it was different, but they went to court over the and got an injunction over the wooden, a rather nice wooden shed down at Bud's. So, you know, hopefully, if they have to, they will get serious.
And Yvonne and I have had a bit of correspondence, and what I'm not sure whether we know yet is how long from putting your mobile on to actually putting in your application do you actually have to wait?
Well, that's the question I asked, and I've just read you the answer.
Yes.
So she hasn't actually.
No, because I mean there presumably is a time limit, but I don't know if it is.
Well, she served this formal notice. She got the answers to it. I thought she said that they're going to put in an application. You told me that before, didn't you? Allegedly.
Pre-application is what they're
pre-application. Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it can all be spun out, sadly. But anyway, we'll see what they do.
Yes.
It's not good.
But it will keep on, you know. Just
yes.
Okay. So highways.
No, I've got nothing to report. Nothing mentioned.
Public rights of way.
the order to divert part of 8086, which is the one down through the Vines Pipers bit down towards the river, has been confirmed now.
Okay.
That's where they were diverting it. If you remember, across from the field down round the
edge, that's right.
where we all walked anyway. So that's not down that bit. No, only in the first half.
What about the one from the wood up the hill to where the cottages are? There's a public footpath there.
Straight through the middle of the vineyard.
Yeah.
No, that's
well, it will be.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether because they haven't planted.
That's as far as I know, that's just a field.
I think they're leaving that area unplanted so that there's access to the cables, the power lines.
Okay.
That's another thing. Otherwise, you won't be able to get.
So where are you?
I'm in the middle.
Oh, you're still down
I'm at the
there.
bottom of the hill, looking up towards the cottages where.
Yes.
Oh, Pudan's.
Pudan's cottages.
Right. Oh, yeah, yes.
There's the
Yes, the footpath.
I'm not sure it's a footpath.
I walked it last week, that bit, and he's slightly off because we normally aim for the telegraph, the electricity pole that's, leaving an angle. Yes, and it's slightly over, but I think he appears to be leaving a wide space, so I don't think we can.
No. And that's what I say. That's what I think is for access to the pole.
Okay.
Yeah, and then down the other side, and that will he knows.
Yeah.
Because I've complained about he has obstructed the footpath across from the back of Jubilee Field across to the wood because he's got sheep in there and he's got electric fence around.
Down there all the time.
Yeah, so I complained about that and he said he was going to get his shepherd to put the insulating stuff across.
Okay.
So we're fine, so he does now.
Right. Open spaces.
Fine as far as I know.
We did our tour before the last meeting. So
I did have another one about 2 weeks ago, but in the last 2 weeks.
Good.
Still open, aren't they?
It's still open.
Cemetery and churchyard. The cemetery, we wait on the planning application for the change of use. The churchyard is all right. Yeah, I read it.
So
Is that not relevant?
Well, doesn't tell me anything I didn't know.
Okay.
Right, you may remember that Mrs. Mavis King is donating a bench to go in the cemetery. Well, the one that was there had all this laurel, self-seeded laurel growing over it, and she was most insistent that this should be cut back, and she didn't want it going, damaging the new bench, which is a fair comment. Well, obviously, Alpha was in no position to cut back this hedge. So I went down there on Monday with Trevor Bailey, and we cut it right back. I've decided that having sawn through these branches, I'm not adding it to my CV.
Rest on your laurels.
Oh dear.
He's getting that time again, isn't it?
But once again, I'd like it minuted.
Sowing the seeds of doubt.
We'll let you minute it that you did a brilliant job.
No, I just did my little bit. But
Trevor the hatchet.
Okay.
We spent a couple of hours down there, and we've
Well done.
really...
When's the bench go?
Right back.
Is the bench there?
Is the bench going?
Not yet. I needed to do all that before. This is why I needed to do it, because it's been paid for, it's ordered, so I needed that done. We've left it sort of at the back, so it's a bit of a windbreak, but we've
Is it going to be planted, the bench?
Yes.
Okay.
She's paying for that.
Did our ashes scatterer get a satisfactory outcome?
I haven't actually got it. I'm glad you reminded me. I haven't got it. Thank you.
Yvonne, can we mention
Yes, I've got that. That's coming next.
Because I know he's...
You know, right. Okay, well, Sue had a letter from Mr. Neil Cooper complaining about the lack of maintenance in the cemetery and the lack of any mention of it in the minutes. Well, I've been down there. It probably needed cutting when he was there. It's now cut, it's not a problem. I have replied and I've apologised that it wasn't as he would expect it. But as far as it not being in the minutes, it's because we haven't had a problem. So it wouldn't be in the minutes.
This will be.
This will be. And I have, and I've said that I haven't had any other complaints at all.
I mean, he was talking about a maintenance programme, wasn't he?
Yes.
Whether he doesn't know that we've got Alf that does the work, perhaps.
I don't know, because I did speak to him some time ago because he was after somebody to look after the grave. And I, well, you know, out to do it. And I said, no, he can't do that. He can't look after individuals. No. And he did have somebody that was obviously helping, but hasn't done so much now. But it's not, we don't look after, we do a bag blanket.
Who is this gentleman?
Just a member. He doesn't live round here.
He lives in Waterlooville. So
parents' grave.
Parents' grave. Yeah, he comes to vacation, does he?
But I don't know. But
yes, I think he comes once now and again.
Yes.
Doesn't he?
So what I've said is that if I've offered to meet him next time he comes, if he's got any specific issues, I can talk over with him. So that's what.
He probably came when it just needed cutting.
Yes, I think so. It was when I was away. It was that weekend, and I've done it now. So. So I think that was probably it. But he does intimate, it does sort of say that that other people were concerned about it as well.
Yeah.
Which I...
At that time.
I've not heard anything.
Nor have I.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have dealt with it and it will be meted.
Right.
But individual grave tending is not really our responsibility. Okay.
And it's clear in the when there's a funeral, I always give we have rules and regulations, and that goes to the.
Sure.
Feel free to come and do any tidying you like.
Right.
Yes. Right.
Village Hall Committee, George?
Yes, we met once since the summer. We did have Wi-Fi on our agenda, and Steve Shuriger was going to go and find out about it. That's why I was asking you if you had found out anything about it. So we've agreed we will pay for it. We've agreed everything. Right. Just he needs to find out how to do it.
Are you up to strength? Because at one stage you were looking for.
We're okay. We've got 5 of us.
Yeah.
So
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well done.
We were putting more effort into trying to get more people than we were actually trying to run the hall. So we're okay at the moment. We're looking for a grant. We're going to get the roof redone behind us there on the storeroom.
Just on the storeroom.
Yeah, because it's leaking like a sieve along the joint.
So I gather
it's going to cost about 20 grand to have that done. So we're going to try and get grants to help with that process. We're going to have this ceiling painted in here. Is another thing we're doing as well. So it brightens it all up.
Do you have access to the I don't know what it's called, the Rural Grants Bulletin?
Yeah,
that comes
yeah,
out.
I got
Okay.
that sent to me the other day. Actually.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, financially we're okay. We're still getting slightly more income every month than we're paying out. So
That's good.
just keeping our heads above water.
Is the roof in a bad state?
It's the join.
The joint.
So right as you go in the door from the storeroom,
Yeah.
it comes down through there and
Yeah.
it just smells horrible and musty.
I'm sure.
I mean, we've been lucky; it's been so dry anyway.
Yeah.
But when it
The
does rain,
winter coming now.
The jazz night that's coming up, half of the proceeds are going to the village hall, aren't
Yes.
they? This is great, so we need to promote that.
Oh, that's for the roof.
You know,
Where's the jazz night?
the jazz night is on the 8th of November.
End of November, isn't it?
23rd, something.
23rd.
Yeah.
There's the
23rd.
There's a notice in the foyer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's good.
Might be a notice there.
All right. Calc. Thanks, George. The main thing that I will just skim through, I don't know how much will be in the minutes, if indeed they've come out yet, I didn't look. The policeman, the chief inspector came, Andy Somerville, and his Inspector Dave Smith, who was the Rural Task Force. Andy, the boss, covers Ashford and Shepway, and incidentally, if no one picked it up, Shepway is no longer called Shepway, it's now called Folkestone High. And people are catching up on that. These are big decisions. NO2 cylinders that you raised before, or she did, Kate, interesting that what the inspector said. We've been told they're not illegal, as she said. They're quite dangerous, he said, in an enclosed space, causes nerve damage potentially owing to oxygen depletion. But this was the thing that's interesting. It's not an offence to use them, but it's an offence to possess with intent to supply for human consumption. They can be arrested and they can be searched. And they would like to know, let the police know if they know where it's happening. Where am I? Country I was mentioned. You can use a picture in a prosecution, such as vehicle issues. You're always on about Country I. He's told us all, please always ring 999 for a crime in action, even if it's only something modest. Crime Stoppers, if you want to be anonymous. Rural speeding. Dave, the rural man, leads a rural portfolio. They just gone up from 1 sergeant and 6 PCs to 1 sergeant and 2 12 PCs and a coordinator. So it would seem as though, what's his name, the Police and Crime Commissioner is pushing rural business. Dave has some 12 years of experience of rural policing. Speedwatch, they have a focus on deaths and injuries, looking at where to go themselves. Less opportunity to do speeding tickets everywhere. They look at the high-risk areas. There are 3 speed guns in Ashford, and they're not much used by local communities. This seems to be the sort of Speedwatch ones where you can borrow them. So he said, feel free, there's a website, you can apply for them.
Get your house firebomb.
Only allowed to do Speedwatch, however, in safe areas, and the worst speeding areas are often not acceptably safe for the people who are doing it. There's a new road safety team of 9 PCs and a sergeant that are being brought in to focus on speeding. Break-ins, the Andy says CCTV. Is it true that CCTV is needed for an investigation? He said it's not true. They will attend burglaries. You should ring them if there is one. I don't know what that says actually. Never mind. They're catching a lot of burglars, he said. Makes it
are they prosecuting them?
Ring.com, that's what it is. Ring.com. He said he's got in his house and he recommends it. Probably not supposed to. It's where if you push the button on your front doorbell, it sets off the CCTV and films whoever's there. So if they come along and ring the bell to see if you're in, they actually film themselves. He thought it. And also you can then, if you're in the Bahamas, like the police probably are, you can
watch your house being burgled.
You go online and you can see who it is. Yeah, exactly right.
Years ago it was called a baby alarm.
Yeah, sure. But this is a video baby alarm. Make it it look as though his advice, make it look as though the house is occupied, turn on lights around the house. You can do that on Rincon from your phone anywhere in the world. The local neighbourhood watch coordinator, I think we know, is Andrew Judd at Ashford. You know that name?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Pretty yes.
The loss of the police forum, a third of the budget and a third of the staff have gone in the last 5 years. Ashford lost a third of its local patrol officers, but they went to higher problem areas because Ashford's not the worst, which tells you something. Now they're back up to strength. They've got 14 PCSOs. There's an establishment of 12, and they've got the extra 2. 3 PCSOs are put into a task force. Ashford Police Station, which they were afraid of losing, is going to stay. The main building will be refurbished inside. There is a periodic report from the rural team, which he urges us to look at. I know you do, Paul. We should get a report from PCSOs and an occasional visit. We had tonight. Any activity at night in fields should be reported, of course, to the rural team. Lights, noise, people, vehicles.
Names.
They want to know.
In fields.
What?
This could knock the whole lifeblood of the village.
Air coursing is followed up. It is followed up. He says it's highly important. Interesting, this highly important. They are keen to catch hare coursers because they steal the money in the day to gamble on hare coursing at night.
They've been very successful, the rural team.
24% increase in charges in the last year. Overall, and I don't know if this is the same thing, 2,400 charges in Ashford. Rural Matters newsletter each quarter. Let me just see if there's anything here.
Can I make a suggestion while you're looking for the next point? It struck me that Kate's got a patch with 6, 7 parishes in it. 19 parishes. So I was going to raise this on this point. We've talked about the police parish forum they used to have. How would it be if we took the initiative to speak to Kate? She's got 19 parishes. If we brought the parishes here, invited them here, right, set a precedent, and we got Inspector Smith, who heads up the task force, to come along, that would help her because she wouldn't have to go in the around 19 parishes, and it would also reconstitute the parish forum that we had. It was just an idea because it was really good when it worked. People were reassured. It was a way of spreading messages around.
Good PR.
And it's good PR, and then another one of her 19 parishes can do it the next quarter. In which case our turn would come around every 3 years. 3 years. Over 4 years.
4 years.
So we could probably run to. You can make coffee. You practice.
Do you mean for doing her sort of routine reports or just for a special get together?
I think a special get together.
Special get
We've
together.
got some of these issues that are cropping up each time, like these NO2 cylinders, for example, and the kids, like the whole country lines piece about the drug pushing out into the kids in the communities acting as pushers, and, mules. There are a whole load of issues, and I just think on our own. Is it worth floating with her?
Well,
I'm happy to do
an
that.
idea for either
think?
Yvonne or yourself to contact her and ask her if she'd like us to take that initiative and see whether we get anywhere.
I think
She
it would
needs
be
to
good.
say first of all if she'd like someone to get all the parishes together.
And what about
I agree with you, but I think there's a way of fashioning it that rather than putting the whole initiative over to her.
No, not putting it over to her, asking if she'd want us to do it.
Rather go above her head.
Well, I would ask her a different way. I'd ask it in a different way. I would say, do you see any objection to us doing it?
Okay.
Not would you want us to?
I think that's the appropriate way.
Okay, that's fine.
And would you like to participate?
Yeah. Even come along.
Well, then it's got to obviously be tied in with when she's got a shift, and we then have to try and make sure that she didn't then get sent somewhere else.
Well, I think if inspect. Sorry, what's the? It's the Blackadder. Blackadder 4 has Mr. Smith, the German spy. But anyway,
Andy Somerville is the chief inspector.
Well, we wouldn't get him.
No, I don't mean him. But I thought you were getting her.
It would be good to ask for someone like that.
Dave Smith.
It's in his interest because he's got this new rural task force.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Could I just say as well, not to have a go at them, but their time is precious. They don't always come. But they never seem to have actually anything prepared and sort of mumble through various things. I mean, she said project about 45 times in one sentence, and it would be better if
Isn't much
if
the
at least she
wiser.
could come along with just a paragraph written that she could just read to us, rather, or send to you
Well,
in
just
advance
like
or something.
when she doesn't come, that's what I get.
Yeah.
That's what I read out.
Yeah, but when she's here, she doesn't make the sense that
But do you
she
remember
makes
when
on
we
the
had
written
when we had Lee? Not,
Yeah.
not Lee, who we got now,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Lee the previous.
Lee Kidd.
What came out was the fact that his source of information as the community watch officer on crime was completely different from the PCSO, because it was like we were living in two different villages.
Yeah.
And I just don't. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think they get much guidance
No.
as to how to communicate. They could really improve that.
Right.
Just to
That
make their
life
time,
easier.
their valuable time. Yet
Exactly.
they're coming here and they seem to be wasting their time, really, half the time.
Okay.
Just my view.
Right, that was calc. We don't have a planning meeting in the diary. You know when the next parish council meeting is. Items for information.
I went on the clerk's course, if you remember. It was quite interesting. We had a presentation on legal updates was the best bit. Confirmed that burial records are not covered by GDPR, so that's good. So all the records I've got back. But there was a not so interesting bit on funding bids and business case developments, and in fact the chap next to me actually fell asleep.
Recommendation.
Yes, so I think that's...
He was giving the presentation.
Right.
So then the community and resilience workshop
Indeed.
that we went to,
The two of us went.
and that was...
It was that much fun.
Both Thursday.
You're very good to do all these things.
Well, Alan's very good in going on to getting up to highs.
I feel it's the least I can do.
Just one thing that I did think you might like to, which came to the fore again. This was Clive Powell was doing a thing on policies, how our local councils, parish and town and communities perceive. So he had this slide of different things. So we had the Vicar of Dibley there, and the Archers. Apparently they'd had a piece on councils, casual vacancy, the book, and programme on television, and Midsummer Murders, I think this was. And then Wittersham. So which was the odd one out?
We are, because we're fictitious.
We are, because we're on an island.
Yeah. There were several possibilities. There were several possible answers. The key thing we learned there was that the big risk for the whole of Kent is flooding. And of course, we're not going to get any serious flooding up here, but of course we can get flooding from dishing, rainwater dishing, but not in their scale. Well, I tell you what, some of the councils, the parish councils, have now had to get stuck in. One of them, I'm just thinking, Edenbridge has got about 24 volunteer flood wardens. They've got equipment stocked in the village.
Yeah, they've got a history of.
Oh yeah, they flood big time.
Yeah, Yolding.
But Edenbridge is a nice, wealthy village.
Oh yes,
Yes.
but nevertheless, there are parish
We don't need a
councils that have
community
had to
vote.
really get stuck in. Anyway, that's where we are.
Well, we're putting inflatable.
Next in items for information, George? No? Alan?
I'm going to mobilise. I'm getting a bit
Sorry?
stiff.
No, thank you.
Alan, could you just wait 2 seconds?
I'm not going.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, I'm getting
Come
this
on,
moving
move
his
back.
legs. I'm just going to move around. I'm just going to move him around.
Sorry.
Sorry,
This is the gout.
no, it's just getting,
Colin,
I get a bit stiff.
items for
sitting still.
information?
No, thank you.
Sue, Leslie?
No.
I've been asked to raise something, but I'd like to
Okay, that's fine.
disconnect.
We can do that.
Please.
So have we finished the council meeting? Can I close it? Thank you. So,
Amen.
just hold on a minute
Yes,
while it
thanks,
goes off.
Ryan.
I'm not going to Gordon Brown's mistake.